Chapter 540, Setting Out to the Middle State. Could I be so bold to ask, do you perhaps go by the surname Han? The female attendant queried. I am Han Lin. Ling Han nodded. He had previously made arrangements with Ing Hong that he would come under the name of Han Lin. So you really are Mr. Han, the female attendant looked pleasantly surprised. Young mistress has long since been waiting for you. Please come with me. Young mistress has commanded that the moment Mr. Han arrives, we should immediately bring you to her. Ling Han nodded, and allowed the female attendant to lead the way. With the guidance of the female attendant, they soon arrived at the courtyard where Ing Hong was. The female attendant entered first to announce their presence. Yo, I say, Mr. Han, you are finally here. Ing Hong appeared, her voluptuous figure extremely captivating, enough to make one drool at the sight of her. She took one look at Hellion Sun Shui, and could not help but look stunned. Then, she said, Young Master Han, you are really very awesome. You've just captured my dear Xianer, and now, you've captured a new girl. Am I Mr. Han or Young Master Han? Ling Han would naturally ignore any private questions, and simply chose to skip over to the next topic. Yet Ing Hong was not willing to give the matter up and wore a mischievous grin. Hee hee, I'd really like to see how you're going to explain it to little sister Xianer later. Is it really an appropriate thing to do for you to sow discord? Ling Han asked. I have big breasts, so of course I can, this woman said without the slightest hint of shame. Female hoodlum. Meanwhile, Hellion Sun Shui could not help but look down at her own breasts, and a strange expression appeared on her face. Could it be that it was because her breasts weren't large enough that Ling Han kept criticizing her? She turned to look once more at Ing Hong. Indeed, those were huge waves, and far from what she could compare to. Secretly she decided that she would properly train her pectoral muscles in future. Come on, little sister Xian has already waited for you for a great many days. Ing Hong changed the subject, her eyes sweeping cunningly over Hellion Sun Shui. She seemed to anticipate very much the scene of a daggers-drawn confrontation that would appear after the two girls met. She led Ling Han and the two girls into the courtyard, then sent someone to call Zhu Xian over. In a few mere moments, a fragrant breeze swept in. Zhu Xian appeared, her face was once again veiled by her white veil. Though her expression could not be seen, an endless amount of pleasure and surprise could be seen from her gaze alone. For an outstanding beauty, even a mere look would be enough to captivate a man. Big brother Han, she called out and took a leap, intending to jump right into Ling Han's arms. Pa! She had not yet landed when both her arms were pulled back at the same time. Furthermore, there was not only one person pulling her back, but two Hu Niu and Hellion Sun Shui. I don't allow you to touch Niu's Ling Han. Hu Niu fumed. Who are you? Meanwhile, Hellion Sun Shui was sizing Zhu Xian and the expression on her face was similarly unfriendly. Before they left, Lu Yutong and Li Si Chan had instilled many ideas into her, such as not to allow other women to get near to Ling Han. Otherwise, they would steal Ling Han away. The moment she opened her eyes, the first person she saw was Lin Han, and like how some animals would think the first living creature they set eyes on when they were born their parent, she also clung close to Ling Han. Thus, she was naturally very careful. She would definitely not allow any woman to steal Ling Han away. Zhu Xian was shocked. A Hu Niu that got easily jealous was more than enough. Why had there appeared another big girl? Also, why were the eyes of this woman blue? They looked weird, but they gave her a captivating air. This is Zhu Xian a friend, Ling Han said to Hellion Sun Shui. Oh. Hellion Sun Shui immediately let go, but Hu Niu set herself between Zhu Xian and Ling Han, her face saying, don't think you can get close. Zhu Xian could only suppress the longing in her heart and look at Ling Han with a touching gaze. Really, she was too beautiful. This mere gaze caused waves in Ling Han's heart, and made him feel an urge to push her down. Tisk, tsk, I say, little sister Xian you're already calling big brother so fast? Ing Hong said from one side, and gave an exaggerated shiver. I'm about to die from the sappiness. If you don't speak, nobody's going to take you for a mute, Ling Han said, smiling. How is it? In my own territory, you will not even allow me to speak. Ing Hong humphed. All right, fine. But shouldn't we be setting out soon? We're all just waiting for you. Now that you're here, let's set out. Though she said that they would set out immediately, they still prepared for a few hours. It was a big matter to set out to the Middle State in order to take part in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion competition, so how could they simply set out just like that? They naturally had to make some preparations beforehand. Their ride was an extremely lavish carriage. Not only did it contain chairs and beds, it was actually divided into 3 compartments. By day, they could sit inside the first compartment and chat, and at night, the women would sleep in the second compartment, whereas Ling Han alone occupied the third compartment. The north region was very, very big. Merely traveling from extreme Yang City to the border between the north region and the middle state would require over a dozen days, and the middle state was even larger. If one wanted to travel to the headquarters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion located in the Million Treasures City, that would be another 20 over days of traveling. The journey would take at least about a month's time, and this was still because their carriage was extremely fast. Otherwise, if they were using an ordinary carriage, then even if the journey took 8 to 10 years' time, don't begrudge it for being too slow. However, they had just stepped out of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion when they saw a group of aggressive-looking people blocking their advance. Ing Hong was surprised. At the entrance to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, she, the young mistress, actually had someone block her way. What was the meaning of this? Brat, surrender your life. When they saw Ling Han walk out, immediately, 5 shining weapons waved forth. How dare you! When the guard of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion saw this, he immediately moved. With a wave of his sword, ding, 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 the 5 weapons were all sent flying from their owners' hands. When the members of the Zhang clan saw this, they were instantly displeased and said, "This brat killed our young master." Previously, he kept hiding inside the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. We gave you face and did not charge in to apprehend him, but now that he's come out, do you all still intend to shelter him? The guard of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion merely sneered coldly. What a bunch of idiots. They actually dared to make a move on young mistress's honored guest. They really were tired of living. The Zhang clan, a clan that merely had spiritual ocean tier cultivators, actually dared to reason things out with the Spirit Treasures Pavilion? Get lost, he declared icily, his killing intent on full display. If you continue pestering, then I'll kill all of you. The members of the Zhang clan were naturally unwilling to yield, and began to shout. Even the Spirit Treasures Pavilion cannot be unreasonable. After killing our young master, you still plan to flee in a grand manner? Hand over the criminal. The guard sneered coldly and drew his sword. He said, "What a bunch of reckless, blind idiots." Shwa, shwa, shwa. After consecutively killing a number of them, those that remained were scared off, and hurriedly turned right around and fled for their lives. Ling Han and the others did not pay any heed to this. A battle of this level, in their eyes, was only child's play. The carriage began to move, advancing towards the middle state. Ling Han sat down comfortably. Hunyo sat on his lap, chewing on melon seeds. She guarded him closely, not allowing Zhu Xian the slightest chance to get any nearer. At first, I was worried that you would be hunted down by the masses, and would not be able to compete for our side. I did not think that you would actually have this kind of skill. Ing Hong stared at Ling Han's face, a shocked expression on her face. Ling Han smiled faintly, and asked, "Has anything big happened recently?" "Yes, there definitely has." Ing Hong answered immediately. Chapter 541, Female Hoodlum. What big matter? Ling Han asked. A heaven-grade alchemist obtained the inheritance of the 12 courts, and found out the location of an immortal's depository. Would that be considered a big matter? Ing Hong countered. Ling Han laughed drily, and said, this joke is really not the slightest bit funny. Then, let's talk about a big thing that happened in the middle state, Ing Hong said seriously. A month ago, a mystery realm opened in the middle state, and a great many obtained rewards from within. There were also a great many new people who have never been heard of before that appeared all of a sudden and became famous overnight. Oh, what mystery realm? Ling Han asked carelessly. As for whatever prodigies had appeared, he could care less. In a battle between himself and an opponent of the same cultivation, he was confident that he would not lose to anyone. The Sky Arena. Ing Hong answered. What kind of mystery realm is that? Ling Han had not heard of it before. The heavens would pick a large number of people to enter the mystery realm, wherein they would be divided into 18 teams. They would overcome various obstacles, and the final surviving teams would participate in a battle to the death. The team that comes out alive would obtain astounding rewards, and it may even be possible that one's cultivation could be raised directly by 2 or 3 cultivation tiers, Ing Hong said. Ling Han was astounded. So awesome, it could actually directly increase one's cultivation by 2 or 3 cultivation tiers? But he immediately shook his head. A real genius wouldn't want to succeed in a single leap like that, because cultivation needed to be polished. After all, the foundations of too rapid cultivation would not be sturdy, even if it would not affect the progress of cultivation. A cultivator like that might not be able to be called an elite among his peers of the same cultivation level. There should have been some who had obtained some kind of good stuff from the mystery realm. On this trip to the headquarters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, there must be people who would plan to auction off some treasures that they themselves cannot make use of, Ing Hong continued. Only at this point did Ling Han look interested. He nodded and said, in that case, it would be worth going. According to rumors, there are some rookies who have very fierce impetus. I am really worried that they would be poached by branches from the other regions. Then, in the martial arts competition, we wouldn't be at much of an advantage, Ing Hong said, worried. Oh, stronger than Xian? Ling Han was shocked. Since recovering from the wound to her divine sense, Zhu Xian's power had improved very rapidly and drastically. Firstly, because she received a rebound, and secondly, Ling Han had given her a great many alchemical pills, as well as natural treasures like flesh from great demons, spiritual liquid, and the like. The progress of her cultivation was indescribably rapid. Ing Hong nodded gravely, and said, very, very strong. In the flower blossom tier, there are 2 persons who have even advanced to the high stage 1 of the flower blossom tier, and are qualified to issue a challenge to such rulers of geniuses like the second greatest swordsman. They were on the same level as Yao Huiyu. At this point, Ling Han, too, wore a cautious expression. In a battle between equals, he had confidence that he could emerge victorious over Yao Huiyu, but if there was a gap of 4 to 5 cultivation levels, then the result would be uncertain. After all, not only was Yao Huiyu a super genius, he also came from an ancient great sect, so he must have had a great many powerful trump cards under his sleeve. Though they had battled previously, Ling Han firstly had relied on the thunder battle armor, and secondly, Yao Huiyu had limited himself to 3 moves. In the end, he made an all-out effort for his 3rd move, but it coincidentally happened to be the mysterious 3000, which was the reason why Ling Han could break through his attack. Thus, that battle was definitely not a display of Yao Huiyu's real prowess. Who are these rookies? Ling Han asked. Xia Yuren, Ji Wenshan, Fei Hong, Wu Huayun, Lang Wu Xian. Ing Hong counted them off on her fingers, knowing them like the back of her hand. Ling Han frowned and asked, these are all flower blossom tier cultivators? All indeed. All below 30 years old? All below. Ling Han was shaken. The rookies of this era were really very powerful. In his last life, most probably, only he, the Sword Emperor, and the others managed to break through to the flower blossom tier before 30, which was a pitifully small number. However, in this lifetime, innumerable geniuses appeared as if they were pouring out from a knocked-over vessel. No, that was not right. It wasn't that the geniuses of this era were more powerful, but rather because the environment for martial arts in this lifetime was really too good. Various mystery realms opened, which allowed cultivators to quickly improve their cultivation. Additionally, the changes to the spiritual qi in the environment gave rise to the appearance of more and more natural treasures, which led to the rapid development of martial arts. On such basis, there was naturally more geniuses who were stronger than before. He could not help but smile. To be able to exchange blows with countless geniuses, this was naturally extremely beneficial to improving his battle prowess. Furthermore, there was really nothing interesting about continuing to trample all over minor characters. I really want to battle with these people. Ling Han said pensively. I am sure that there are definitely a few among these people who would be taken in by the other branches to take part in this Spirit Treasures Pavilion tournament, so you will definitely get the chance to, Ing Hong said. Ling Han laughed, and said, I only agreed to participate in the alchemy competition. If you want me to participate in the martial arts competition, okay, but you need to raise my pay. Hey. You were the one who said you wanted to battle with them. I am creating an opportunity for you. Ing Hong rolled her eyes. I've never seen anyone who would bite the hand that feeds them like you. All you think about is money. Ling Han shook his head, and said, You've really proven yourself to be a businesswoman. It is obviously a matter in which you have the advantage, but you speak as if you're making a loss. Fine, whatever you like. If you want me to move, then let me see the level of your sincerity. Ing Hong gritted her teeth, and asked, Would the sincerity of 100,000 double-star origin crystals be enough? Double-star origin crystals? I don't take that kind of trash. Ling Han said in disdain. He had already broken through to the flower blossom tier, and to him, double-star origin crystals were practically useless. 1,000 triple-star origin crystals. Ing Hong slapped a hand onto the table, and as if her flesh had been slived off, she wore a terribly pained expression. Nyo, do you think I look like a beggar? Ling Han turned and asked Hu Nyo. No. Hu Nyo was naturally on his side. He turned to Zhu Xianer and asked, Xian, what do you think? Of course Big Brother Han doesn't look like one. Zhu Xianer immediately replied sweetly. Ling Han turned to Helian Sun Shui, but without waiting for him to ask, this princess of the sea race immediately said, Ling Han is not a beggar. All right, she knew how to answer before being asked. Looks like her intelligence had improved considerably. Ling Han turned back around and said, You see, everyone said I don't look like a beggar, but why do you use the method of bestowing alms on beggars on me? Isn't that looking down on me? Ing Hong really wanted to throttle someone. Hey, who would use 1,000 triple-star origin crystals to bestow alms on beggars? She was the daughter of the pavilion master of one of the branches of Spirit Treasures Pavilion, so she was naturally a born businesswoman. Immediately, she declared shamelessly, just 1,000, no more. If you want, I have one life here. Why not you just sleep with me then? With my identity, sleeping with me once would be more or less worth 1,000 triple-star origin crystals. If you sleep with me a few more times, you'd even have to pay me the balance. Ling Han was instantly defeated. In the face of this kind of female hoodlum, he really felt helpless, like he was trying to attack a porcupinino idea where he could hit. He sighed, and asked, Does your family know that you're so shameless? I have big breasts, so what if I'm a little shameless? Ing Hong asked arrogantly. If the gods are displeased, then throw down a lightning bolt to strike me then. Hong. The moment she finished saying her words, a loud noise was immediately heard. It sounded like thunder, scaring the two horses into a panic, which caused the carriage to sway dangerously. Ing Hong could not help but turn pale. The gods were everywhere. She couldn't have been so unlucky that the gods really heard her, right? That's not right. There's someone fighting. Ling Han immediately shot out. Chapter 542, Two Great Geniuses. Ling Han shot out of the carriage and saw that there were two people currently engaged in a fierce battle in the sky not too far away. Since they could soar in the skies without external help, they had to be in the flower blossom tier at the very least. Since they were too far off, Ling Han was naturally unable to sense the two fighters' aura, and was thus unable to distinguish what their cultivation levels were. However, with his vision, a mere glance was enough to see clearly the two fighters' facial features. They both looked to be in their 20s, and were extremely young. This did not mean that they simply looked young, but that they were really young. Their blood and chi shot majestically skywards, displaying their amazing vitality. Hong. The two exchanged another blow. One wielded a saber, whereas the other held a sword. As their weapons slashed, 19 flashes of saber chi and sword chi swept out, as if they meant to tear apart the sky and earth itself in a very terrifying display. Ling Han was astonished. He had grasped 19 flashes of sword chi, but the two fighters in the skies were actually not the slightest bit inferior to him. That was too much nonsense, wasn't it? They had merely been traveling, and they were able to encounter such young elites of this level? However, his blood quickly boiled and battle intent soared, as if he, too, wanted to join in on the battle. Hong! 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 In the skies, the two young elite cultivators used various magnificent techniques, their respective martial intents which could easily knock any cultivator in spiritual pedestal tier unconscious on full display. In the flower blossom tier, the divine flowers of martial arts had already bloomed, so cultivators were able to stimulate the spiritual chi in their surroundings to add on to their own attacks. Thus, their destructive power was absolutely terrifying. Even if they were battling in mid-air, the shock waves produced from their blows were still able to easily slice apart cliffs, as if the end of the world was descending. Peng, a rock cliff collapsed and coincidentally happened to fall right above Ling Han's head. With a wave of his sword, the cliff was cut into two halves, which separated right above his head and fell on both sides. Peng, peng. Due to the terrifying impact, the ground instantly shook like a carpet. Ling Han instantly found a reason for him to join in on the battle. So, he, too, flew skywards, and shouted loudly, "Hey, you two brats, you actually dared to throw rocks at me. Watch my sword." His sword brandished in a strike that headed towards the two fighters. The two had just been embroiled in a fierce battle and had not imagined that a third person would interfere in their battle, and could not help but become furious. However, this strike of Ling Han was overwhelmingly powerful, and they could not choose to do anything else but parry. They both temporarily put aside their own battle and turned to parry Ling Han's strike. Peng! Now that the two geniuses had combined forces, their battle prowess was really too terrifying. Even a monster like Ling Han was forced backwards by the impact. However, Ling Han's battle intent was overflowing. These two fighters were both in the 7th layer of the flower blossom tier, a whole 5 layers higher than he who was in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier. Yet there was not much of a gap between their respective battle prowess. Such opponents were too hard to find. How could he be willing to give up easily? He had finally gotten a pretext to join in, and would definitely not be willing to leave just like that. With a loud shout, he used the ghostly immortal steps and displayed the desolate hell sword technique. That was the final move, and as if he himself had transformed into an Ashura that had descended into hell, his killing intent scorched the skies. The two young men were both furious and astonished. They had just been in the midst of enjoying their battle when they were suddenly interrupted. "Kill this brat first, then we'll continue the battle." All right. The two fighters had come to an agreement and joined forces to strike against Ling Han. One was a swordsman, and was capable of stimulating endless flames, whereas the other wielded a saber that shone with multiple flashes of golden light in a ferocious display. Either one of these two great geniuses was capable of sweeping aside all opponents in the flower blossom tier alone, and now that the two of them had joined forces, they were even more frightening. Even as strong as Ling Han was, he was being oppressed. However, this made him even more excited. In the midst of using ghostly immortal steps, the desolate hell sword did not even move into a defensive stance, but rather moved into increasingly fiercer attacks. At first, the two young men had intended to kill Ling Han swiftly before returning to their battle, but as the battle continued, their battle intent was stirred up as well. Not only did they put in their all into the battle, their alliance had collapsed as well, and the battle had completely evolved into a battle royale between the three of them. They were all geniuses, confident that they were invincible against anyone of the same cultivation level. As a result, they were all disdainful of joining forces with another to defeat another elite cultivator who was worth battling. In the skies, the battle continued heatedly. Fire rained, and flashes of golden light floated downwards as if they intended to destroy the world. Zhu Xian opened up a defensive shield. Though she was only in the 7th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, she was more than adequate if she only had to withstand the shock waves produced from a battle between flower blossom tier cultivators. As Hunyo watched, she became more and more excited, and continued to bare her teeth endlessly as if she, too, wanted to join in on the battle. Meanwhile, Hellion Sun Shui wore an alarmed expression, and asked, would Ling Han get injured? It would be his fault even if he did. Who asked him to charge in? Ing Hong said, rejoicing in the fact that Ling Han was in trouble. You're a bad person. Hellion Sun Shui exclaimed, pouting. I have big breasts, so I can be bad. Ing Hong placed her hands on her hips in front of Hellion Sun Shui and even purposely stuck out her chest, making even Hellion Sun Shui feel embarrassed. How could this woman be such a hoodlum? Ha 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 ha. In the skies, the three fighters broke out laughing and simultaneously stopped attacking. How delightful. What fun, the swordsman declared. I am Fei Hong, could I be so bold to ask how I should address you, brother? So he was Fei Hong, a new super genius that had risen just recently. He had just heard about him from Ing Hong just now. No wonder, how could there be so many geniuses in this world that they would encounter such a genius so easily? I am Han Lin, Ling Han answered, smiling. Looking at the saber wielder, he asked, and this is? Lang Wu Xian, this man answered a bit coolly, appearing to be quite cold in temperament. But merely from how he looked like when he was battling, one could tell that the moment this person's blood heated up, he was a very frightening person to see. I have actually not heard of Brother Han's name. Fei Hong looked surprised. A genius like Brother Han should be well known. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, that's right. I was just about to head to the middle state to amaze the world in a single brilliant feat. Fei Hong laughed alongside him, whereas Lang Wu Xian remained expressionless as if he was made out of wood. Rather than Wu Xian, he should go by the name of Wu Xuanyuan. The two of you should have come from the middle state, yet why have you come all the way here? Ling Han asked. I had agreed on a battle with this guy. After half a month of battling, we had unwittingly fought all the way here, Fei Hong answered, grinning. They had fought all the way from the middle state to the north region? These two had really gone crazy in their fighting, then. Come, let's drink. Ling Han's generosity was stirred up. He invited the both of them onto their carriage, wherein he drew out the ingredients from the Black Tower as well as the herbal wine that had been produced from the various spiritual herbs that had been cultivated inside the Black Tower. It was not only a strong wine, but very nutritious as well. If a cultivator drank normal wine, it had practically no effect. This wine, though, was completely different. It was definitely strong enough. Merely after drinking one cup, Fei Hong was glowing with health and vigor, and Lang Wu Xian could not help but relax his wooden expression as if he had finally gained some life. As they continued to enjoy their wine, they chatted about all the young heroes of the world. Brother Han, so you are a representative in the Spiritual Treasures Pavilion tournament. Then you'd have to be careful. I heard that Xuanyuan Guang will also be a battle representative for the South region. After a few cups of wine, Fei Hong already had his arm around Ling Han's shoulder, declaring them to be brothers. Is he very powerful? Ling Han asked. He had not mentioned that he was actually taking part in the alchemy competition part of the tournament. Of course, on a whim, he could consider taking part in the martial arts competition as well. Very powerful, Lang Wu Xian suddenly spoke up, and declared his judgment with utter seriousness. I am no match for him. Ling Han was astonished. Though Lang Wu Xian didn't speak much, this type of person either chose not to speak at all or hit the mark with a single word. Even he judged himself to be unequal to Xuanyuan Guang, which proved that the latter was indeed very strong. Chapter 543, Eye of Heavenly Dao. Previously, in the battle royale between the three of them, there was practically no difference in their battle prowess. Of course, Ling Han had not used ultimate techniques like the mysterious 3000, but he was sure that these two must have held their punches as well. There were some secret techniques that would only be used in a life-or-death situation. Yet Wuxia admitted honestly that he was no match for Xuanyuan Guang, which showed that not only was the latter stronger, he was stronger by a significant degree, which was the only reason that a proud man like Wuxia would admit his inferiority. That guy is indeed very powerful, Fei Hong agreed with a nod. However, he has the advantage in cultivation level as he is already in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. If we battled on the same cultivation level, I am confident that I will not lose to him. No, even if we fought on the same cultivation level, we are no match against him either. Wuxia shook his head in disagreement. You have never fought him before, Fei Hong declared defiantly. We won't win unless we are able to break through our own limitations. Otherwise, if we merely advance another few cultivation layers, it would still be insufficient to overcome the gap in battle prowess that stands between us and him. Han Lin, on the other hand, may be qualified to fight with Xuanyuan Guang but only when the two of you are on the same cultivation level. Otherwise, the result will still be defeat, Wuxia said with absolute certainty. This time, Fei Hong yielded. He said, Brother Han is only in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier yet is already able to battle us to a tie. Indeed, his battle prowess is more outstanding than ours. This also tells us that we should never be complacent. We had originally thought that we had already polished our battle prowess sufficiently, yet had never thought that there would be another person stronger. Brother Han is even more of a monster than we are. Could Xuanyuan Guang come from some ancient great sect that he's so strong? Ling Han felt slight disbelief. His origins are mysterious, no one knows his true history. However, I have fought him before, and his bloodline is very powerful. It granted him a power upgrade of 3 battle stars, Wuxia said in a tone of absolute certainty. 3 stars. One shouldn't underestimate these 3 stars of battle prowess. For geniuses like them, they had more or less advanced their battle prowess to the limit, and the ability to add another 3 battle stars to this maximum level would naturally be enough to turn the tables around in any battle. Wuxia paused, then continued, if he did not use his bloodline ability, and fought with me on the same cultivation level, his battle prowess should be similar to mine. But if he did compound his battle prowess with his bloodline, then he is more powerful than I. Ling Han nodded. There were really too many capable people in this world. He definitely could not allow himself to fall into a state of self-satisfaction. Being stagnant and not moving forwards would be equivalent to an endless decline. Brother Han, let us meet once more in the middle state. When Fei Hong and Wuxia had drunk to their heart's content, they bade Ling Han farewell. After this battle with you, we feel tremendous pressure. We need to find a dangerous spot to have a good bloody battle. If we don't die, our battle prowess would be greatly improved, and then, we'll find you again. Let us learn from each other once more. Good. Ling Han agreed gladly. Geniuses were never as grand as what the masses imagined them to be. What genius had gotten to the level they were at without risking their lives in the process? The 2 men took to the skies, but they both left in a different direction. Most probably, the only beings that could push them to the limit would have to be in the spiritual infant tier. Either they would choose to trifle with demonic beasts of this level or powerful human cultivators, all to squeeze out their own potential through a life-or-death battle, raising their own cultivation and battle prowess. AI. Ing Hong immediately sighed. I had initially thought that we had a high chance of winning in the martial arts competition, but never thought that there would suddenly appear so many monsters. Really, I'm about to die of fury. Can't you people appear a year later? Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, I'll recommend you an elite cultivator. I guarantee that Xuanyuan Guang whatever would only be swept aside in the wake. Oh, you won't say it's you, right? Ing Hong looked at him with an expression filled with doubt. I've already told you, I can only afford to pay you 1,000 triple-star origin crystals in wages. If you want any more, then I can only pay you with my body. Get lost. Ling Han rolled his eyes. The elite cultivator that I'm referring to is her. He pointed at Hellion Sun Shui. Pooh. Ing Hong instantly choked on her own saliva. What kind of joke was that? Hellion Sun Shui, too, looked shy and bashful, hiding herself behind Ling Han. Her two slender hands grasped tightly onto the corner of Ling Han's shirt as if she was really scared that Ling Han would really sell her off. Ling Han sighed. This was the real pro at showing off. After another few days, they reached the well-known region barrier. It was a transparent barrier so high its top was hidden in clouds. Everyone guessed that this barrier had been created by an array, but no one had ever found any formation's eyes. Thus, this was a mere guess. The region barrier separated the middle state and the other 4 great regions, as if separating the landmass into 5 boxes. It also allowed for the fact that the martial arts level in every region was completely different. The region barrier did not have the slightest effect on the common people, but the stronger one's power, the more one would be affected. If a spiritual infant tier cultivator passed through, not only would his cultivation level experience a temporary drop, his life source itself would be considerably decreased. Thus, if one wanted to traverse the world, it was best to do so as early as possible. The best cultivation level was the flower blossom tier. Not only did one not have to fear being harmed by the region barrier, one's ability would also be strong enough for self-defense. The region barrier stretched up into the skies as if there was no end to it. What is at the end of the skies? Ling Han asked. The end of the skies? Maybe the legendary realm of immortals, Ing Hong answered. Ling Han shook his head. In his last life, he had once flew up into the skies continuously, but very soon encountered a terrifyingly strong wind that not even a heaven-tier cultivator could withstand. He could only choose to helplessly give up the idea of wanting to see what lay at the end of the skies. One day, I will definitely sever this sky, and see clearly for myself, he declared grandly. Shattering void-tier cultivators shattered the void and became immortals. Did that mean to shatter apart something like the end of the sky? Wang. All of a sudden, the fair weather immediately changed. It actually became darkened abruptly before a dark cloud rapidly appeared, with terrifying lightning flashing within. Thunder tribulation? That couldn't be, right? How could a flower blossom tier cultivator actually attract a calamity of thunder? Aside from alchemical calamities, it was rumored that only when one broke through to the shattering void tier would one incite a calamity of thunder. Within the dark clouds, an incredibly bizarre sight was seen. A single eye appeared. It was as gigantic as a mountain, and was staring down at where Ling Han and the others were standing. Ling Han was absolutely sure that the one this eye was focusing on was himself. And even if he had a sliver of divine sense of heaven tier, at this moment, he still felt the urge to flee inside the Black Tower. The pressure was too terrifying, making him feel as if his soul itself was about to explode. However, he did not want to flee. This eye did not have any killing intent and only held endless disdain, as if it was mocking him. The eye of Heavenly Dao. Ling Han was internally shocked. He had read from ancient scrolls before that if a mortal said something rebellious, or did something that could possibly affect the balance of the world, the eye of Heavenly Dao would appear as a warning or even directly kill the offender. Of course, it was not as if any random person cursing would incite the appearance of the eye of Heavenly Dao. That person had to indeed have the potential to shake the universal balance of the world. Only then would the eye of Heavenly Dao appear. Who knew, it might even make a direct move to erase a factor that could possibly be a liability to itself in the future. Could it be that when he said he wanted to sever the skies one day, he had actually given a scare to the world? Furthermore, there was a possibility that he could succeed in future? Really, what an optimistic opinion of him. Ugly, get lost, Nyo doesn't like you. Nyo jumped up onto the roof of the carriage with her hands on her hips, looking very fierce. When the eye of Heavenly Dao turned to look at Nyo, it was very obvious that slight fear actually appeared in its gaze. Suddenly, the dark clouds turned and flipped, covering the eyeball before quickly disappearing altogether. When the dark cloud had completely dispersed, the eye of Heavenly Dao had also disappeared. Fuck, was it really chased off by Nyo's scolding? Chapter 544, A Young Man as Strong as the Son of a God. Nyo looked very pleased with herself. She had absolutely no idea what kind of astonishing feat she had just accomplished, but she was still a child, after all, so she was naturally Tsundra one. Meanwhile, Ling Han was astounded. That was the Eye of Heavenly Dao. In the ancient tales, the Eye of Heavenly Dao was the guardian of the balance of this world, and was also able to command the power of an entire realm. Why would those beings as strong as immortals still have their cultivation suppressed upon entering the lower realm and could only use power on the level of the shattering void tier? If they surpassed that allowed level, why would they be forcibly expelled? That was because of the Eye of Heavenly Dao. It guarded the order, and could directly make use of the rules of this realm so that no one would be able to transcend the rules. Yet, such a powerful existence was actually chased off by Nyo's scolding. Ling Han shook his head. It did not look like it was chased off by a scolding, but looked more like it had been scared off. The little girl was so awesome. Ling Han knew that she possessed a human-like spirit base inside her that was very terrifying, capable of even easily destroying his divine sense of the heaven tier. But he was only on the level of the heaven tier. A shattering void tier cultivator would be able to do the same easily. Meanwhile, the Eye of Heavenly Dao was even more powerful. Just now, it had only stared at him for a moment, and Ling Han felt as if his divine sense was about to shatter. Yet Nyo actually scared off the Eye of Heavenly Dao. Damn, being capable of scaring off the strongest existence of this realm, what kind of concept was that? One had to understand that even if immortals descended, they would be forcibly suppressed, and with this comparison in mind, how strong would that human-like spirit base inside Nyo have to be? Was that really just a spirit base? Ling Han could not help but worry. If that spirit base was merely asleep, and then awoke one day and completely took over Nyo's body, what would happen next? In the face of that kind of existence, would Nyo's spirit be able to stand strong? What freaky thing was that? Hong gasped uncontrollably. Too terrifying, she had directly been scared into flopping into a sitting position on the ground. She was completely covered with cold sweat. The pressure exerted by the Eye of Heavenly Dao had surpassed even immortals, and at least within this realm, it was the most powerful existence. Ling Han pondered for a moment, then replied, "If I have not guessed wrongly, that is the Eye of Heavenly Dao." Heavenly Dao actually has an eye? Zhu Xianer asked curiously. Perhaps. Ling Han was not too sure himself. After all, the Eye of Heavenly Dao was merely a myth, perhaps it had a different name. What unforgivable crime did you commit that you would even attract the attention of the Eye of Heavenly Dao? Hong was on the verge of freaking out. She had absolutely no desire to be eliminated. Ling Han said with utter seriousness, "How could it be possible that an honest, trustworthy, good and kind young man like me would do something unforgivable? Please do not slander me." Hong could only roll her eyes like mad at his retort. After this little interlude, none of them mentioned the Eye of Heavenly Dao again. Thankfully, though the two coachmen had also been scared out of their wits, they came back to themselves after a moment's rest. The two steeds had also recovered, and they could continue on their journey. When they passed through the region barrier, a very strange feeling arose, but before Ling Han could make any sense of it, they had already passed through and officially entered the middle state. Ling Han was surprised. This middle state was indeed very different. The moment he entered, he could feel that the spiritual qi here was denser, as if there was something additional in the air that was more advantageous to the progress of martial arts. It was indeed reasonable that the martial arts level in the middle state was higher. The carriage rocked and swayed, continuing to advance towards Million Treasures City. They did not encounter any more danger on their way, because the flag of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was raised on the carriage. This made a great number of thieves and bandits take the initiative to back off, not daring to have any thoughts about robbing their carriage. This was also proof of the power of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Its name was well known, so even if it was only a lone carriage, no one dared to rob them. After about a month, the carriage finally arrived in Million Treasures City. This was where the headquarters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was, and at the same time, was also where the headquarters of the Alchemist Society was located. It was as if the two were conjoined babies. Where one was, the other was not far away. But it was understandable. High-grade spiritual pills occupied the greatest share of the auction items in Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and the Alchemist Society also needed the Spirit Treasures Pavilion to auction off their alchemical pills in order to maximize their profits. Thus, the two parties have always maintained a close working partnership. The group of 5 disembarked from the carriage and, guided by Ying Hong, went off to find accommodations. The Spiritual Treasures Pavilion was a towering building. The foundation of the building was about 2,000 meters high, which was tall enough that one could only look up at it. Furthermore, this palace-like building was incredibly huge. It really held up the facade, and was qualified to be the real headquarters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. And this was only the facade of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion that they used as a venue for their auctions. Behind it, there was another massive group of buildings used to accommodate the countless number of people belonging to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. The majority of these people made up the security detail. If it did not possess a very strong power, how could the Spirit Treasures Pavilion be able to deter the world, and cause any potential thief to falter at the idea of robbery merely upon seeing the flag of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion? A staircase extended towards that higher level. It was made of white jade, and from afar, the light reflected off it made it seem like a shining cloud. This made it seem as if this place was sitting upon the summit of clouds, making it look even more magnificent and grander. With Ying Hong's guidance, they walked up the stairs. They had only walked halfway when they saw someone walking out of the palace. In truth, coming to and fro was a very normal thing. However, this person's aura was too powerful. Divine light actually encircled his body, and with every step he took, brilliant light would shine. It was as if the son of a god was out, as he possessed an astounding aura. All the way, everyone could not help but stand still and admire this young man that possessed such an astounding aura. They wanted nothing more than to kneel down in obeisance and worship him. This young man was tall and slender. His hair was black and thick, with skin like the best quality jade, smooth and fair. He was also extremely handsome. He most probably had to stand there and it would be enough to make countless women fall for him. He was shockingly in the flower blossom tier, and was a top cultivator at the 9th layer. With every breath he took, it was as if the whole world resonated with him. Ling Han was astonished. This young man's vitality was strong and he was incredibly young. Furthermore, this young man was shockingly already in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. This kind of talent was really quite scary. This young man walked down step by step, his aura seeming as if it was natural, leaving one only to feel endless reverence in his wake. He soon passed by Ling Han's group, but he had only taken 2 steps when he suddenly stood still. Abruptly, he chased over, his eyes focused on Hellion Sun Shui, holding such concentration as if he was staring at his beloved lover. "Hey, you're blocking the way," Ling Han said. "Get lost." This young man directly raised his hand in a slap, filled with condescending forcefulness. Ling Han gave a cold humph. It was too late to draw his sword, so he threw out a punch of his own to parry. War Elephant Fist was out in full display. 17 silver images of dragons appeared, that rolled towards the young man. His sword chi had increased to 19 flashes, so his grasp of the art of fist techniques had also rise correspondingly. The young man exclaimed in surprise. He had obviously underestimated Ling Han's ability, yet he did not take it to heart. His right hand merely turned over and the power behind this palm strike instantly spiked. Pung! In truth, The palm and fist did not come into contact, but the two young men's origin power had collided, which instantly created a powerful impact. The shock wave that was released was filled with destructive ability, and instantly, there appeared multiple cracks upon the stone steps. Tang, tang, tang. Ling Han stepped back continuously, and only regained his balance after he had taken a consecutive 17 steps backwards. Chapter 545, Xuanyuan Zi Guang. An expression of shock finally appeared on the young man's face. He turned to look seriously at Ling Han and said, "You actually managed to block my strike? Not bad, not bad. Who are you? You are qualified enough for me to know your name. Are you retarded?" Ling Han asked coldly. Did this young man really think that he was the king of the world and everything revolved around him? How dare you? The young man was instantly furious, and shot out another palm strike. Immediately, a total of 23 flaming tigers appeared and pounced towards Ling Han. Every single fiery tiger was extremely scary and strong enough to subdue any normal cultivator in the 9th layer of the flower blossoming tier. The combined appearance of these 23 tigers was practically a horrifying sight. 23 flashes of qi. Ling Han could not help but feel surprised. He had only grasped 19 flashes of sword qi, and in terms of fist qi, his advancement was obviously even more behind. However, he merely gave a cold humph and faced the oncoming attack with fists raised, striking out with 17 silvery dragon images. Pang, 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 pang. The dragon images and the tigers of fire collided and tore at each other. It was apparent that the flaming tigers had the upper hand. Merely 13 of them could stand against these 17 dragon images, and the remaining 10 continued on their fiery course to Ling Han. Ling Han used the ghostly immortal steps and managed to successfully dodge this attack. A powerful fighting spirit burnt in his eyes, and he shouted, "Take one more punch from me." He shot out another punch, but this time, he inserted an ancient bone pattern, and instantly, his martial intent grew inexplicably brilliant. The power of the 17 dragon images increased several times and flew at the young man in a counterattack. Interesting. The young man waved out a palm strike and again, 23 fiery tigers pounced. Pang! This time, the 17 dragon images actually stopped 17 fiery tigers in their path, but there were still another 6 flaming tigers that continued to pounce towards Ling Han. There was nothing that could be done. This young man had higher comprehension in martial arts than Ling Han, or at least that was the case in terms of qi. In addition to the fact that he had higher cultivation, it was only natural that he would have the upper hand in this exchange. This was something that Ling Han could do nothing about. Most importantly, he was also a genius, and furthermore, a super genius. Ling Han gave a loud howl, and with ghostly immortal steps, flashed right in front of his opponent, intending to have a short-distance battle with the latter. He had already formed body of iron sheet, and added with the fact that his 9 dragons tyrant body art had also advanced to the flower blossom tier. In any short-distance fight, he was definitely the best in the same tier. Unless his opponent was also similarly monstrous, and had cultivated some super body art that allowed him not to only have terrifying physical strength, but also an incomparably tough physique. Using the mysterious movements of the ghostly immortal steps, Ling Han successfully flashed right in front of that young man and shot out a punch at him. "Where did you get the confidence to have a close-up battle with me?" The young man smirked and shot out a palm strike to parry Ling Han's attack at an overwhelmingly fast speed. Usually, most cultivators would avoid close-up battles because what they cultivated was origin power, so most were not physically tough. In an instant, a cultivator could shoot out 10 or even 20 flashes of origin power, but without enough physical strength, would he be able to deliver 10 or even 20 strikes in an instant? As long as enough distance was maintained, then a cultivator needed only turn over his hand, or wave his sword a few times, and he would be able to injure his enemy from afar. Would the enemy fleeing with a single leap be faster, or he, who only needed to raise his hand? However, in a close-up battle, raising a hand and turning over his palm would become an extreme luxury. There was a saying that said, "The whip is too short to reach," but if the whip was too long, it would also become very inflexible when used. Yet this young man was actually skilled at close-up battles, as his parrying palm strike was very well practiced, and fully displayed his skill. This meant that this young man definitely had a strong physique. Ling Han's battle-intent soared. With a loud howl, he began a fierce battle with the young man. Pang, pang, pang. They both struck extremely quick short-distance blows. There were not many flashy moves, merely the display of martial intent and the glowing of intricate patterns that endlessly shattered before reforming again in a continuous cycle. In this battle, the two of them actually came to a tie. Ling Han's physique was undoubtedly stronger. That was something that had been refined through the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Furthermore, with his cultivation of the Nine Dragons' tyrant body art, his physical strength was similarly terrifying. The young man's physique was inferior to Ling Han's, and so was his physical strength. However, his stronger origin power had compensated for this disadvantage. "I've really underestimated you," the young man declared coldly. Killing intent flashed in his eyes, and pang, a terrifying aura spread out from his body and transformed into 1,000 flaming blades that shot towards Ling Han. Even if Ling Han had formed the body of iron sheet, wherein his physique was as tough as precious metals of the same level, he still felt dread. He could not help but retreat, and extend the distance between the two of them. "Ha ha ha ha, within 10 moves, I will make you bow down in front of me." The young man laughed loudly, delivering several palm strikes in quick succession like he was an ultimate existence capable of splitting apart the skies and cleaving the ground. His battle prowess instantly soared to a whole new level. Unless the level of one's physical strength had surpassed the level of one's origin power, the smart move was of course to maintain distance. However, there was practically no one on this plane that had physical strength that surpassed his origin power. The young man was very smart. Furthermore, he might be arrogant, but he was not an idiot. Though he had previously expressed his disdain towards Ling Han, he had absolutely no intention of fighting with Ling Han in a close-up battle, which was not his strongest area, again. For those cultivating origin power, it was natural to maintain distance with one's opponent so as to throw out martial arts techniques as much as one liked. Ling Han was being suppressed, but it did not mean that he did not have the ability to turn the situation around. He was most skilled at sword techniques, but he did not draw the demon birth sword, not did he use the mysterious 3000. These were his trump cards. Moreover, this was the middle state, and who knew if someone would recognize the mysterious 3000 and lead to the old monsters from the Heaven's Sword sect being drawn out? "Stop!" A cold humph was heard, and a displeased voice came from the palace above them. "What do you two take this place for that could allow you two to do as you like here?" This deep rebuke was filled with austerity, and Ling Han and the young man immediately stopped moving at the same time. Being proud depended on the venue. Otherwise, that would not be pride you were showing, but idiocy. The person who had rebuked them had to at least be in the deity transformation tier, and no matter how monstrous Ling Han and that young man were, against such a presence, their only fate was to be suppressed and subdued. Whoever disobeyed would be seeking a beating, and Ling Han and his opponent obviously did not want to be thrashed. The young man was still very arrogant. After slanting a look at Ling Han, he no longer paid him any attention, but instead turned to look at Hellion Sun Shui and said, "I am Xuanyuan Guang. I fancy you, so be my woman." So he was Xuanyuan Guang. No wonder he was so strong. Hellion Sun Shui hurriedly ducked behind Ling Han before poking out her beautiful face and sticking out her tongue at Xuanyuan Guang. She only felt that this person was baffling and detestable. Meanwhile, Ling Han shot a pitying look at Xuanyuan Guang. This guy had too favorable an opinion about himself, yet had completely no idea that this adorable woman was actually in the heaven tier. Though she was currently amnesiac, one day, her memory would definitely return, and by then, he'd be dead meat. When Xuanyuan Guang saw this, his gaze directed at Ling Han unconsciously became filled with a powerful killing intent. The woman that he fancied actually was so intimate with another man? He could not tolerate this and definitely had to kill the man in question. If not, the knot in his heart would never be erased. Once you leave here, you will be a dead man, he said, pointing at Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, all right. Then you can just spend the rest of your life waiting here for me. Xuanyuan Guang was rendered speechless. He had not thought that Ling Han would be so shameless. He gave a humph, then said, I will wait for you. Chapter 546, Searching for the Boundless Mountain. Xuanyuan Guang turned around to leave, but before he had taken more than a few steps, he heard Ling Han mumble softly, idiot. He then could not help but turn back round, his gaze icy, and snapped, what did you say? Oh, I said you were an idiot. I didn't think that you actually know yourself so well, and knew that I was calling you, Ling Han replied, smiling. Instantly, Xuanyuan Guang was enraged, his killing intent boiling and rising above his head, transforming into tongues of flames. Images of real dragons and real phoenixes, Biyao and Zhenbu appeared, indicating the terrifying ability that this young man possessed. He really was very powerful. Perhaps he might not be inferior even to the Sword Emperor and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden years ago. Once you leave this place, I will definitely behead you, he declared coldly, his tone filled with determination. Then you just have to wait patiently, idiot. Wait for my mood to improve, and that will be when I will take your life, Ling Han said lazily. As someone who had once been an elite cultivator of the heaven tier in his last life, no matter how powerful this generation of youths were, it was still impossible for him to look upon them seriously as true opponents. In his eyes, the people that he needed to surpass were the Sword Emperor, the Setting Sun Saber Emperor, and others who had already entered into the realm of immortals if they really had entered it, that was. Xuanyuan Guang did not continue to argue with Ling Han as that was completely meaningless and merely a waste of time. With a humph and a flourish of his robes, he left. This time, Ling Han did not mutter anything else. He was wondering if he should pick something like Xuanyuan Guang's hair and throw it into the vial of curses to curse him. However, once one had reached the flower blossom tier, they had already left behind their mortal coil and would no longer have any hair fall. They could also freely control the growth of their fingernails. Only demonic beasts would continue to grow as the path they took was one of physical cultivation. Therefore, it was quite a difficult feat to get physical tissue from a flower blossom tier cultivator. Forget it. Xuanyuan Guang was only in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. Killing him would not be anything too difficult to accomplish once Ling Han raised his cultivation by a few more levels. Let's go and get your accommodations arranged, Ling Han said, a hint of a smile in her expression. She was obviously very pleased to see a conflict arise between Ling Han and Xuanyuan Guang. That way, the chance of Ling Han putting his full effort into assisting her would be even higher. Is it really appropriate for you to take so much delight in the misfortune of others? Ling Han teased. I want to, and what can you do about it? Ling Han stuck out her breasts. How vulgar. Ling Han said disdainfully. The 5 of them entered into the Spirit Treasures Pavilion as Ling Han showed proof of her identity. Afterwards, they were then invited into the massive building complex behind the Great Hall. However, the North region had the weakest martial arts level, and as a result, the North region branch of Spirit Treasures Pavilion naturally had the lowest status here. In this place, Ling Han's aura was obviously weaker. Wait until I get the first place in this tournament. We'll see what else you all have to say. She fumed. Big brother Han, that Xuanyuan Guang indeed has extraordinary power. You definitely must not be careless, Zhu Xian said softly to Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and said, don't worry. I will not fear anyone, but I will not underestimate any genius either. Honestly speaking, his current power is indeed above mine, but if he wants to kill me, that would still be a fantasy. He was absolutely certain of this fact. He had too many trump cards up his sleeve. Oh, right, let me ask you something, Ling Han asked Ling Han. Do you know of the Boundless Mountain? What mountain? Ling Han asked blankly. Boundless Mountain. TSK, I only lived in the Middle State for a few years. Moreover, the Middle State is such a big place, so how could I know where the Boundless Mountain is? Just hold on, I'll find someone and ask around for you. Ing Hong bustled away, but after a while, she again bustled back and said, You damn brat, are you playing around with me? I've asked a great many people, but none has ever heard of such a mountain. Ling Han frowned. After 10,000 years, it was natural that there would be a change in the names of places, but here was the problem. The Middle State was such a huge place, so how could he possibly travel to check every single mountain? Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you playing around with me? Ing Hong asked fiercely. Take care of how you speak. Otherwise, no one would dare to marry you. Ling Han warned. Hey, I have huge breasts, so if I wanted to marry, it'd be a piece of cake. Ing Hong snorted. You all just stay here for the moment. Oh, and it'd be best to try to avoid conflict with Xuanyuan Guang. AI, the South region actually hired such a monster. Looks like we won't be able to get many marks for the martial arts competition. Ling Han laughed and said, I have a way. What way? You think of a way to get hold of Xuanyuan Guang's hair, and I'll make a voodoo doll to curse him. I guarantee his ability would decline greatly, and he would be no match for Xian Air, Ling Han suggested with a smile. Tisk. Ing Hong rolled her eyes. This brat was playing with her again. I'm leaving, you guys can rest for a while. However, take it easy. After all, there is only a month left until the tournament, so don't ruin your bodies. Get lost. After Ing Hong left, the three girls found their respective rooms and deposited their baggage first, though they didn't really have much baggage. After all, they had the Black Tower, and everybody had a spatial ring too. Meanwhile, Ling Han sat down and continued to ponder the matter of the Boundless Mountain. In his last life, he had heard of the Boundless Mountain, but had never been there before. He only knew that such a place existed in the Middle State. Since that was the case, he could first find out where it was roughly located before slowly searching for the exact location. In the past, that was like fishing a needle from the sea, and now, it was like fishing a needle from a lake. Though it was still a very slow process, it was still better wandering aimlessly all over the entire Middle State. The guest rooms of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion were still of very high quality. Though there was a map of the Middle State in every room, it was not very detailed. Furthermore, only some bigger areas were marked, and great many small cities and mountain ranges didn't even have their names written. Ling Han tried his best to remember and compare, and finally tapped strongly on the map. It's here, Flying Blossom County. The Middle State was really too big, so it was divided again into 36 different counties. Flying Blossom County was one of them. However, even if the area had shrunk 36 times of the initial area, Flying Blossom County was still incredibly huge. At least, it was even bigger than the whole North region. If he wanted to find a specific mountain in this place, it would be difficult. Hopefully there aren't that many mountains in Flying Blossom County, Ling Han thought. It was not possible to make a close comparison on such a map, so Ling Han called over a servant and commanded him to buy a map of the Flying Blossom County. It was claimed that anything could be bought in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. As a result, even if he did not step out of here, he could still practically buy whatever he wanted. As long as he had the money for it. Soon enough, the servant returned. He said that there were a total of 3 grades of maps. Ordinary maps could be bought with mere money. The prices of mid-grade maps were in single-star origin crystals, whereas high-grade maps had to be bought with double-star origin crystals. The price of the last grade was as high as 10 origin crystals. Ling Han internally mocked the Spirit Treasures Pavilion for being ruthless, but still handed over 10 double-star origin crystals to the servant and told him to buy a high-grade map and return with it swiftly. After another while, the map was delivered into Ling Han's hands. Since a map could be sold for 10 origin crystals, what more when they were double-star origin crystals, it naturally had features worth such an exorbitant price. Firstly, the material that the map was drawn on was very valuable. It was drawn on the shell of a clear dragon-scaled tortoise, and had used a completely intact shell. The clear dragon-scaled tortoise was not some high-grade demonic beast, but its shell had a special ability: it could shrink or enlarge by will. It could stretch out to 100 meters at maximum, and it could shrink to a size as small as that of one's palm. Because of this, the clear dragon-scaled tortoise had been greatly hunted, and by now, there were pitifully few left of this kind of demonic beast. Ling Han walked into the courtyard. With a wave of his hand, the tiny tortoise shell in his hand immediately enlarged, showing clearly all the mountains, plains, and rivers in detail. Chapter 547, The 5 Dragons and Twin Phoenixes. At the most critical moment, the Xuanyuan left behind a message and claimed that all the secrets had been left at the Clear Harmony Palace Hall at the Boundless Mountain. He was very curious what she meant when she said that everything in the last few eons had been a lie. It was definitely not a moment of madness. Something that could make an ultimate elite cultivator of the shattering void tier willing to stand against her own clansmen, and even sacrifice herself merely to let the secret be known. The implications of this matter could possibly be terrifyingly colossal. Since they had come to the middle state, the search for the secret that the Xuanyuan had left behind was naturally a matter of vital importance. The tortoise shell had enlarged to an area of about 100 meters and weighed a few thousand kilograms, but Ling Han's physical strength was really too tremendous. He could easily carry it single-handedly, without any need to use origin power at all. Looking at the map, he tried his best to compare it with what he remembered and ruled out those mountains and plains that were definitely different. There's still as many as 21 places. Ling Han shook his head. He could only rule out so many, and there were still 21 mountain ranges that fitted the description he remembered from years ago. After all, he had never been there, and it was already quite a feat for him to be able to narrow down the scope to this extent. Should we go now or wait until after the tournament? Ling Han pondered. The search for the Clear Harmony Palace Hall will definitely not take just 1 or 2 days. Since I have already agreed to help out in the tournament, then I naturally cannot break my word. All right, then we'll just go after the tournament is over. But do we really need to stay at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion for this whole month? Oh, right. Ing Hong said that recently, there have been a great many who came out of the ancient historical sites, and it is highly possible that they possess some treasures that they themselves cannot use. They will then put it up for auction. So let's just go and check when the auction will begin. It was really a coincidence that there happened to be an auction this very night. Furthermore, it was the large-scale auction that would take place once every month. And after another month, the super auction that took place once a year would be held. This would be a very grand event with a great many treasures on auction. According to rumors, even elite cultivators of the deity transformation and the heaven tier would appear sometimes. However, only those with invitations could participate in the large-scale monthly auction. Thus, Ling Han sought out Ing Hong, and asked her to help him obtain an invitation. In his opinion, though Ing Hong's status in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion in the Middle State was not too high, it would not be a problem for her to get him an invitation. However, the result was surprising. Ing Hong actually returned empty-handed. I really am about to die of fury. The moment Ing Hong entered, her expression was filled with rage. That be ********, Ing Chi, actually dared to stop me. She didn't give me an invitation when I asked, but instead tried as much as possible to change the subject. Ling Han frowned, and asked, you couldn't get it? Ing Hong sat at one side and said helplessly in displeasure, I was stopped by that be *********. She wouldn't give me one. She has an enmity with you? Ling Han asked. You can say that. Ing Hong thought for a moment. She's just jealous my breasts are larger than hers. Ho ho. Naturally, Ling Han did not believe her. She is my third uncle's daughter, and my third uncle does not have a good relationship with my father. She told the truth. Ling Han gave an oh, so it was a family feud. I'll think of something else, and help you get an invitation, Ing Hong continued. Ling Han shook his head, and said, I'll just use my own way, then. You? What can you do now? Ing Hong was disbelieving. Ling Han grinned and said, "Don't forget my real identity." Ing Han was astonished and asked, "No way, are you sure you want to take such a risk?" "This is not called taking a risk, but rather decreasing the risk," Ling Han said with a grin. He decided to appear with his original identity. Was a heaven-grade alchemist still unqualified to participate in the auction? And no matter what precious item he managed to buy at the auction, everyone would turn their focus on Ling Han instead of Han Lin. Because the moment the auction concluded, Ling Han would disappear, and in his place, Han Lin would appear. TSK, safe. Now that he had made his decision, Ling Han relaxed. At dinner, he drew out the various food ingredients in the Black Tower to share with the others, and everyone naturally feasted to their heart's content. That was especially the case for Hellion Sun Shui and Ing Hong. Neither of them had eaten such delicacies too often, so both fought over food without any care for their image as genteel ladies. Moreover, they were no refined ladies in the first place. One had lost her memory, and the other frequently spoke about sleeping with her, so what reservations did they have? "If you let me eat these every day, it'd be fine even if I have to throw myself at you," the shameless woman said. Ling Han naturally pretended he had heard nothing. He left the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and quietly removed the disguise he had on his face, regaining his original appearance. Then, he strode towards the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. "This customer, our pavilion is not open to the public tonight, and will only receive special guests." He had just stepped onto the staircase when he was hailed down. Ling Han declared his identity directly, and said, "I am Ling Han, a heaven-grade alchemist. Can I be considered a special guest?" "What?" That person was obviously shocked by the words, heaven-grade alchemist, and after slight hesitation, said quickly, "Please wait for a moment, honorable customer. Please allow me to immediately report to my superior." In a rush, he raced up the stairs. There was naturally another supervisor there to maintain order. At this point, the auction was about to begin, and a great many people passed him by. There were middle-aged people who walked with the gait of a soldier, there were also elderly people who had unfathomable depths, as well as young people with soaring vigor who carried themselves loftily. Naturally, they all had invitations, and were allowed in easily. Some of them saw Ling Han waiting at the foot of the staircase, and instantly looked disdainful. He wanted to go in without an invitation? Where had this beggar come from? "Hey, brat. How about if you kneel down and call me Lord, and I'll bring you in for a look around?" There would always be someone who had cheap mouth and would not take the fact that Ling Han was a flower blossom tier cultivator into consideration. In the middle state, the flower blossom tier cultivators could not really be considered as all that powerful. Ling Han's eyes froze over. He asked, with such a cheap mouth, "Are you not afraid you will attract trouble for your clan?" This was a profligate young master who looked to be in his 20s. He was merely in the spiritual ocean tier, yet had the arrogance that said that the heavens may be greatest, the earth may be number 2, but I am number 3. "You damn brat, do you know who I am?" the spoilt youngster said arrogantly. "My surname is Sunday." "Oh, grandson 1. Ling Han nodded. "Fuck." The profligate young master was infuriated, and he immediately leapt up in anger. This young man was really demeaning him too much, wasn't he? "Young master's son, don't get mad. He's only a country bumpkin. Furthermore, this place is the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and it would not be proper to make a move here." Someone immediately came up to mediate. It was a friend of the spoilt young master. The spoilt young master gave a humph, and with a flourish of his sleeve, he said, "Consider yourself lucky. Otherwise, would have skinned you alive." Ling Han shook his head. It would be over and done with if he just used a finger to pierce to death such a piece of trash. Anyways, there were already uncountable people targeting a heaven-grade alchemist like him, so he was not afraid if there was another 1 or 2 added to the bunch. "The 5 dragons and twin phoenixes are here. It really is them. This aura is really too amazing." It was at this moment that a sudden commotion arose among the crowd. Everyone turned to look behind. A group of 7 people was striding over. There were a total of 5 men and 2 women, and all of them looked to be only in their mid-20s. Yet, every one of them seemed like giants among men. Furthermore, they were all in the flower blossom tier. The middle state was really deserving of its reputation. There were actually so many flower blossom tier cultivators below 30 years of age. And this was only Million Treasures City, and not ancient great sect like the Heaven Sword Sect and the Cloud Phoenix Sect. Who knew how many powerful prodigies and geniuses these sects had? The 5 dragons and twin phoenixes were the 7 most outstanding people of the younger generation in Million Treasures City. They were all members of the great clans of the city. If that was not the case, without sufficient cultivation resources, no matter how much of a genius you were, there was no way you would be able to break through to the flower blossom tier before 30 years old. These 7 people walked forwards, unafraid and upright. Every single one of them exuded a bearing of unmatchable confidence. One of the dragons spotted Ling Han, and could not help but look surprised. I didn't think that there would actually be such a young person who is already in the flower blossom tier. Brat, become my follower. Chapter 548, Are you qualified? What? Xiang actually wants to take in this young man as a follower? This brat has really gotten a big break. Xiang's father is Grandmaster Kang's youngest disciple, and he's rumored to be shockingly talented in alchemy. His future accomplishments would be immeasurable. Which Grandmaster Kang? In Million Treasures City, who else would dare refer to himself as Grandmaster Kang? Could he be the heaven-grade alchemist, Kang Zhi, Grandmaster Kang? Naturally. The masses released exclamations of shock. A considerable number actually directed envious looks at Ling Han. If he could become Xiang's follower, then there would be no longer any need for him to worry about obtaining alchemical pills. One had to know that there were an unknown number of people here who wanted desperately to become Xiang's followers, but the latter would not even look at them. Even the profligate from before could not help but feel extreme envy. Though his background was not too bad, but it was incomparable to Xiang. If one was like a dragon, then it was already very kind to compare the other to a dog. All eyes looked at Ling Han, and no matter how they pondered, there was no chance that Ling Han would reject the offer. Ling Han cast an eye on Xiang, and said with a smile, "Are you sure you're qualified enough for me to follow you?" Ha 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 ha. Xiang laughed loudly. "Young man, you are able to break through to the flower blossom tier at such a young age. And this is indeed a commendable feat. However, from the flower blossom tier onwards, there are pitifully few natural treasures that will have supplementary effects for you. You can only depend on the alchemical pills concocted by high-grade alchemists. And my father is the disciple of a heaven-grade alchemist. So, don't you think that I'm qualified enough for you to follow me?" This was indeed a fact. Before the flower blossom tier, alchemical pills were more commonly used for recovery and healing. But from the flower blossom tier onwards, alchemical pills would really become supplementary items that no cultivator could go without. How tremendously difficult a feat it was to comprehend the natural Dao of this world. However, high-grade alchemists were capable of extracting the natural essence from medicinal ingredients and transform them into patterns, a kind of consciousness that would allow a cultivator to have better comprehension and increase the advancement rate of one's cultivation. Ling Han laughed and said, "I see you have already broken through to the flower blossom tier before 30, so you can barely be considered a genius. In the future, you may follow by my side and be a manservant." Pooh! Everyone choked. This brat was really too mad, wasn't he? He actually wanted one of the 5 dragons, Xiang, to follow him? Where had he gotten such confidence to say something like that? Xiang had not foreseen this either. He had already revealed his background, but Ling Han was not the slightest bit moved. He could not help but feel slightly stunned. "Ha ha ha ha, Xiang, you've been beaten, haven't you?" One of the other 5 dragons laughed. "That's right. Usually, just because you have a lot of alchemical pills, you always throw them in everyone's faces, and now, you've finally thrown them at a wall of iron, haven't you?" Xiang could not help but look angry, and said, "Wall of iron? At most it's only a wall of wood. He's only about 20, and is already in the second layer of the flower blossom tier. And you still think he's a wall of wood? One of the others continued to fan the flames, enjoying chaotic situations. Jia Zhang felt humiliated, and countered, he's only in the second layer of the flower blossom tier. I would be able to suppress him single-handedly. Jia Zhang, you, too, are only in the second layer of the flower blossom tier, someone pointed out. The cultivation level may be the same, but there could be a massive gulf in battle prowess. And my battle prowess is 7 stars. Jia Zhang declared arrogantly. To be able to have battle prowess surpassing 5 stars, this was indeed a very terrifying thing. Usually, one with battle prowess surpassing 2 stars could already be considered a genius, and 5 stars was definitely a super genius. Forget it, one of the twin phoenixes, a girl in green robes, advised. She was extremely beautiful, not the slightest bit inferior to Lu Yutong or Li Xichan. She looked like a deity with her extremely beautiful looks and touching temperament. The auction is about to begin. It's best to enter earlier. For Miss Li's sake, I'll spare you this once. Jia Zhang humphed. Meanwhile, the other girl in red robes was a quirky one. She waved a hand at Ling Han and said, I see that you're waiting here, so you must not have an invitation, right? Why don't you come with us? Our private room is big anyway, so having one more person would be fine. Ling Han laughed and said, thank you for the invitation, but I, as a human, would prefer not to sit with cats or dogs to avoid downgrading my own status. When he said cats or dogs, his eyes were focused on Jia Zhang, and the meaning between the lines could be no more obvious. He was comparing Jia Zhang to an animal. This time, not only Jia Zhang was driven furious, even the other 6 people were slightly displeased. They were part of Jia Zhang's group, so didn't that mean that they, too, were cats and dogs? Brat, watch your mouth, one of them rebuked. Oh. Ling Han was completely indifferent. You all came here, and the first thing that pops out of your mouth is to make me your follower. Is that reasonable? Then call your fathers here. I'm in a good mood today, so I will take them in as my followers. How dare you, the 5 dragons shouted simultaneously. Had this young man lost his mind? Which one of their fathers wasn't an important, influential figure? This young man was practically seeking his own demise. Ling Han humphed, and said, you feel displeased? Then, before you open your mouths, think carefully if your words would offend someone. There are some people in this world that you cannot afford to offend. Mad. He was really mad. In front of the 5 dragons and twin phoenixes, he actually said that he was someone that they could not afford to offend, but who the fuck was he? It could be claimed that these 7 people were practically representatives of the 7 strongest parties in this million treasures city. Added together, even the city would have to give them face. Ling Han was only 20 years old, and such a young man himself was definitely no one too important. In terms of background, there was no way he could compare to the 5 dragons and twin phoenixes, so where had he gotten such self-confidence from? One could only say that he was too mad. Could it be that the 7 of us have not been out for too long a time that people have already forgotten our power? One of them asked coldly. His name was Lai Qin-yun, one of the 5 dragons. The forefather of his clan was in the deity transformation tier, and his background was also the worst off amongst their group. However, his personal talent in martial arts was extremely high, and he was also the one who took his place as one of the 5 dragons most seriously. In comparison, the green-clad girl was kinder. She merely frowned slightly, and said, forget it, he's merely a madman. Her name was Li Fei Yun. The Li clan was an old great clan in Million Treasures City. They had a powerful heaven-tier cultivator in their ranks, but in the last few years, there were rumors that this old monster had already fossilized, though no one knew the truth of the matter. Meanwhile, the red-clad girl was obviously one who liked to stir up trouble. She immediately pulled Li Fei Yun back and said, Big Sister Yun, this brat's pride is sky high, so let us just see if he can back it up. Her name was Ding Ban Xiang, and she, too, was a member of a great clan that possessed a heaven-tier cultivator. The 5 dragons glared at Ling Han simultaneously. All of them were giants among men and rulers of martial arts. The combined appearance of all 5 of them formed a terrifying pressure. Any normal cultivator in the flower blossom tier would probably have shaky legs in the face of such pressure, not even being able to remain standing. Ling Han looked like he felt nothing. These 5 people were indeed very strong, but they were far from the level of Yao Huiyu and Xuanyuan Zi Guang. Even compared to Lang Wu Xian and Fei Hong, they were still far inferior, and they wanted to suppress him? What kind of joke was that? Are you playing a game of crossing your eyes? He asked, smiling. This brat was really mad. At this point, he actually still dared to tease them. Brat, speak your name. Jia Zhang shouted. What, do you guys want to beat me up? Ling Han asked in surprise. People with cheap mouths naturally should be properly disciplined. Lai Qin-yun said coldly. Chapter 549, Grandmaster Ling. Tension thickened. All 5 dragons came from prestigious backgrounds. If it was a direct confrontation with the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, they would definitely not dare to do so, but if it was simply thrashing someone at the main entrance to the pavilion, they believed that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion would not cling on to this fact and make things difficult. They were confident that the pavilion would at least give them this amount of allowance. The 5 dragons had their attention closely focused on Ling Han, their eyes icy cold. This young man spoke to them with such insolence, and made them extremely displeased. Ling Han placed his hands behind his back and said with a smile, "You want to make a move? Then you'd best consider carefully. Later, even if you kneel in front of me begging for mercy, it would have to depend on my mood." Ha 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 ha. The 5 dragons all sneered. Did this young man have absolutely no concept of how the word death was written? The observers all laughed loudly as well. They had seen many madly arrogant people, but it was the first time they had seen someone like Ling Han who was so arrogant when he had absolutely no basis to back up his confidence. How reckless. Fei Zhang moved. They were the mighty 5 dragons, so naturally, they would not join forces and gang up on a single person. However, to be able to qualify as one of the 5 dragons as an exception of the norm, his prowess was naturally extraordinary. One of his hands shot out. Tightly woven patterns appeared, then transformed into a divine light of gold, as if it was not a human arm, but the golden claw of a divine dragon. Ling Han seemed to be stunned as he displayed absolutely no reaction at all. Everyone else shook their heads. When they saw him act so high and mighty, they had initially thought that he might have some great prowess to back it up. But now, it actually seemed that he would not be able to withstand even a single blow. The dragon claw approached, and a terrifying pressure rolled out. The skin of a lower-level flower blossom tier cultivator could even simply rip apart from the mere pressure. Ling Han did not move a hand, no, he moved his foot. He shot a direct kick right into Fei Zhang's face. The timing of this kick was very meticulous as it actually just happened to avoid Fei Zhang's attack. Furthermore, if Fei Zhang had taken Ling Han a bit more seriously, he would definitely not have delivered such a close-up attack, or at least, he would not have been so rash right from the very first strike. However, very unluckily, he was too careless, and thought it would be a very easy thing for him to strike Ling Han down. As a result, this kick was directly planted on his face. How could an arm be longer than a leg? Thus, before Fei Zhang even got close to Ling Han, he was solidly kicked by Ling Han's stretched-out foot. Fei Zhang gave a soft humph and quickly tilted his head, narrowly dodging this kick. He was, after all, one of the 5 dragons and one of the most skilled of the younger generation, so he could not possibly be that weak. He took multiple steps back, a burning ache on his face. He could not help but extend a hand to touch his face, and to his shock, he realized that there were actually traces of blood on his hand. Though he had dodged Ling Han's kick, it was as if the strong wind generated by the kick was as sharp as a blade. He did not cultivate body of iron sheet, so how could he possibly get off lightly when the aftermath of an attack on the level of the flower blossom tier rubbed against him? Hiss. Everyone could not help but inhale sharply. One of the 5 dragons, Fei Zhang, actually experienced a loss at a single strike. Though it was merely a scrape, and had absolutely no effect on his battle prowess, but amongst their age range, how many people were capable of injuring Fei Zhang? Even if Fei Zhang had been careless, Ling Han's individual skill would have to be strong enough to be able to successfully perform such a feat. I've really underestimated you. Fei Zhang rubbed clean the remaining traces of blood on his face, his eyes slightly red. He felt true anger now. Yet Ling Han said, on the other hand, I did not underestimate you. You really do only have this little ability. Fuck, that was really too cocky. Not only Fei Zhang was enraged, the other 4 dragons could not tolerate this either. The 5 dragons were a whole group, and Fei Zhang being demeaned was equivalent to their own level being pulled down along with him. This naturally made them even more displeased and unhappy. Again. Fei Zhang said coldly. He had learned his lesson this time. He would not engage in a close-quarters combat with Ling Han again. Cultivators cultivated their own qi, and that was truly their strongest weapon. How could he display the power of his qi to its maximum capacity at close range? Grandmaster Ling. It was at this moment that an exclamation was heard from the top of the staircase. Teng, teng, teng. A short, round fatty raced down the steps. This man was really too fat, so fat that one could barely even see his legs. Thus, everyone felt as if they were watching a meatball rolling down the stairs. This undoubtedly would be a very hilarious sight, but not one person actually laughed, because this was a big shot of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. His figure had a high grade and his status too was high grade. The 7th Pavilion Master, Xuanyuan. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion of the Middle State had a total of 9 Pavilion Masters. These were really important characters, qualified to be on equal footing with the sect leaders and grand elders of the ancient great clans. Furthermore, all the 9 Pavilion Masters were in the Heaven tier. Did the Spirit Treasures Pavilion not have a powerful Shattering Void tier cultivator on hand? According to rumors, yes, but none have ever seen him before. A high and mighty cultivator of the Heaven tier would actually come forwards personally to receive a Grandmaster Ling. Then what kind of existence would this Grandmaster Ling have to be? An Earth-grade high-level alchemist? No, an Earth-grade high-level alchemist might not yet be qualified for such treatment. It would have to be a Heaven-grade alchemist. But the problem here was, didn't this world only have 2 Heaven-grade alchemists, and neither of them had the surname Ling? Wait, there was indeed a Heaven-grade alchemist by the surname of Ling, but that person was from the North region, and was rumored to have even obtained the inheritance of the 12 courts. Furthermore, he even found out the location of the depository of an immortal. This Heaven-grade alchemist came here too. Where? Everyone turned here and there, hoping for a glimpse of this legendary person. Naturally, not one of them imagined that it could be Ling Hanha. Was too young. How could such a young man be any kind of grandmaster? The meatball rolled all the way down, and those in his way hurriedly stepped aside to avoid being run over. However, this meatball was rolling too fast, and there were some who did not manage to dodge in time. They were instantly sent flying as if they were mere scarecrows. But Xuanyuan did not have the slightest inclination to stop. This was what being in the Heaven tier meant. He could act as willfully as he liked. The 5 dragons all had a scare, and hurriedly stepped to the side of the path. They did not have the slightest qualification to challenge a Heaven tier elite. Not just them, even if the highest-ranked person in their clans came, they would still have to be obedient and docile in front of Xuanyuan. Thus, if they were really sent flying, they could only bear with it like a bout of bad luck. Yet Ling Han made no move to dodge or hide. Hiss, who did this brat think he was? If he was really trampled to death by a Heaven tier cultivator, he would have died for nothing. Who asked him to be so blind? The meatball's speed was too fast, and in an instant, he was already near Ling Han. Everyone shook their heads. It was obvious that Ling Han, too, would be sent flying like his predecessors. But it was at this very moment that the meatball Xuanyuan suddenly stepped on brakes and stopped directly in front of Ling Han. A smile appeared on his round face. Because he was really too fat, his neck could not be seen at all. It was as if there was a small ball perched on top of a large ball, making for an incredibly funny sight. Yet not one person dared to laugh. To laugh at the appearance of a heaven-tier cultivator right in his face, that was really a move to make when one was tired of living. Yet Ling Han broke out into loud laughter. With every laugh, the cheek muscles of the spectators involuntarily twitched as they felt a cold feeling rise up from their hearts. Hopefully, Xuanyuan would not sink into a mad rage later on. If a heaven-tier cultivator was in a rage, then a massacre would be inevitable. Unexpectedly, Xuanyuan also began to laugh, and from the looks of it, he seemed to be quite pleased. Grandmaster Ling, you've honored us with your presence. Apologies for not coming out to meet you, please forgive the offense. Xuanyuan bowed. Fuck. A strong feeling of dizziness swept over all the spectators. A high and mighty heaven-tier elite actually bowed in front of a mere flower blossom-tier cultivator. Had their vision blurred or something? In addition, Grandmaster Ling, this guy was Ling Han. The expressions of the 5 dragons instantly became unimaginably ugly. Chapter 550, Brick. This young man was actually Grandmaster Ling? What kind of joke was that? Yet how could it be that a high and mighty heaven-tier elite cultivator would deliberately put on such an act merely to prank a few juniors like themselves? If they thought that, then they really had too high an opinion of themselves. Everyone could not help but recall what Ling Han had said before. Even if Fei Zhang and the other 4 dragons knelt in front of him and kowtowed in apology later, Ling Han might not even pay them any heed. When they had heard that, they all thought it was merely an arrogant boast, but now, everyone was fully convinced that it was an absolute fact. A heaven-grade alchemist, what kind of awesome existence was that? He was someone that even a heaven-grade cultivator would actually come out to receive him personally. By that, one could tell how important his status and how exceptionally high his social rank was. A few juniors merely in the flower blossom tier weren't even qualified to carry his shoes for him. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "You're too polite. How should I address you?" Just look at how influential he was. Xuanyuan had already come out personally to receive him, and yet Ling Han did not even know who he was. What a big show-off. Ha ha ha, Xuanyuan. I am the 7th Pavilion Master of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. If Grandmaster Ling does not mind, you may just call me Little Yang, Xuanyuan said with a smile. Everyone instantly shivered in disgust. Looking at the figure of this man, they really had no idea who would be able to call him Little Yang. But in this world, how many people were actually qualified to call him Little Yang? Aside from a few invincible cultivators of the Shattering Void tier, there were probably only a few high-level Heaven tier cultivators that had such qualification. 7th Pavilion Master. Ling Han was disgusted as well. He could not make himself call out the name Little Yang, even if he tried. Grandmaster Ling would like to participate in today's auction? Xuanyuan asked. That's right. Ling Han nodded. Please, please. Xuanyuan hurriedly invited him inside. Ling Han walked forwards. Instantly, everyone, especially Fei Zhang and that profligate young master, breathed an internal sigh of relief. But Ling Han then stopped, then turned and said to Xuanyuan, 7th Pavilion Master, if I want to call a few people to account, would I seem to be too much of a bully? Xuanyuan's expression immediately darkened. He asked, oh, could there be that someone offended Grandmaster Ling? Ho ho, one wants me to call him grandfather, another wants me to become his follower, and there are a few more who want to beat me up, Ling Han said, smiling. When they heard his words, Fei Zhang and that profligate young master were on the brink of tears. How could they have known that Ling Han was a heaven-grade alchemist? If they had known, they would not have dared to say such a thing no matter what. Who? Xuanyuan's eyes swept over the crowd. Instantly, a powerful pressure swept over the masses. At this moment, he was no longer that amiable damn fatty, but a heaven-tier elite cultivator that could make the world tremble with a single stomp. The spectators felt as if their very spirits were trembling in trepidation, and they could not even manage to gather the slightest energy to resist. Ling Han nodded internally. This fatty's cultivation should have reached approximately the 4th to 5th layer of the heaven tier, though he could not accurately sense exactly which layer the former was at. After all, Ling Han merely had a sliver of divine sense of the heaven tier at the moment. Xiang and that profligate young master stepped out on trembling legs. They both knelt down on the ground and said, "Please forgive our offense, Grandmaster Ling." Ling Han merely acted like he had not seen them, and continued to chat with Xuanyuan, talking about trifling matters. He was obviously ignoring Xiang and the other 4 dragons as well as that profligate young master. He had really been true to his word. They had all knelt, but whether Ling Han accepted their apology would have to depend on his mood. The 5 dragons exchanged looks with each other. They all hardened their hearts, and began to slap themselves. When the profligate young master saw this, he quickly kowtowed continuously, really afraid that Xuanyuan would eliminate all of them in a rage. "Grandmaster Ling, the auction is about to begin. Why don't we just go in and sit down first?" Xuanyuan asked. He, too, did not want so many people to crowd around the main door of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. After all, this would not have good implications. Ling Han merely directed a smile at Xiang and the other dragons, as well as that profligate young master, before he walked up the stairs and entered into the Great Hall. Xiang and the dragons as well as that profligate young master all broke out in a cold sweat. Though Ling Han had not rebuked them, how could things be settled so easily after offending a heaven-grade alchemist? With Xuanyuan in the lead, Ling Han arrived inside a private room. This was also the most luxurious private room in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. At the moment, only Ling Han obtained such an honor. Ordinarily, such a top-quality private room would only be used during the special auction that would be held every dozen years or so. It was specifically reserved for the use of the Shattering Void tier elite cultivators and other persons of similar status, such as a heaven-grade alchemist. Ling Han had long since become indifferent towards empty fame. He was completely calm in the face of such special treatment, and sat down inside the private room. The auction would begin in a moment's time. Xuanyuan spoke to Ling Han for a few moments before begging his leave and departed. He had also very generously given Ling Han an overdraft of 100,000 triple-star origin crystals. To be honest, the identity of a heaven-grade alchemist could not possibly be just worth this amount, so why had the former given Ling Han such a small tab? That was simple. Shattering Void tier cultivators would perhaps not take the inheritance of the 12 courts too seriously, but the depository of an immortal concerned too much. If he became the target of the Shattering Void tier cultivators, Ling Han would definitely be fraught with grim odds. Thus, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion would naturally not invest too much in such an unstable variable. To be able to grant him a tab of 100,000 triple-star origin crystals, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was actually already being very generous. As Ling Han sat, one transaction after another was completed. However, there were also some auction items that were not purchased. It was indeed worthy of being the huge auction that would only be held once every month. There were too many items up for auction and the variety was tremendous, but not even one garnered Ling Han's interest. On the other hand, such an auction would only take place once a month. Thus, there could not possibly be too many valuable items up for auction. Perhaps, after another month, there would be astonishing valuable treasures up for auction in the annual grand auction that would be held then. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a bout of loud laughter rang out in the auction venue. Ling Han had initially been sleepy. When he heard such a huge commotion, he could not help but look over. He saw that the auctioneer was actually holding a brick. A brick? Ling Han felt a slight urge to laugh, but when he thought about it, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion shouldn't have really gone so far and used a brick to hoodwink their customers. Thus, he began to look more closely. This was actually not a brick. It merely looked very much like one, but upon a closer look, one would still be able to see that its edges were not uniform. It seemed to have initially belonged to a gigantic rock, and had now been knocked off. One side of the brick was flat, but the other side actually had half a character, or perhaps it would be better to call it the traces of writing, though it could not clearly be seen what exactly it was. This brick has been through the close examination of several master appraisers of our pavilion. However, they were not able to analyze the specifics of its structure and what it is exactly used for. The only thing that could be confirmed was that this had once belonged to a stone plaque, and is at least 100,000 years old. Furthermore, this stone brick is extremely hard, and has been obtained from a specific ancient historical site. The auctioneer introduced the brick. He seemed to be unable to find any other advantages of this brick, and thus, could only try as much as possible to brag. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, but he, too, was unable to tell what was special about this brick. There were only a few marks of writing on it, which seemed to make something in his heart feel alive. Interesting. The base price is 10 origin crystals, the auctioneer said, obviously not placing much hope on this auction item. 20. 50. 100. Though they could not tell what this brick was used for at the moment, there was still a considerable number of people willing to buy it as a collectible because it was at least 100,000 years old. 1,000, Ling Han declared. Without specifying the grade of origin crystals, it was understood that the bid was in single-star origin crystals. For Ling Han, single-star origin crystals were really not considered as much money. 2,000. Another person made a competing bid. The voice that spoke sounded a bit familiar. Chapter 551, Could Not Bite Through. Mu Fei Yao. Ling Han suddenly recalled. She was a member of the Cold Spear Association, which he suspected had been established by his disciple. At that time, just for the sake of an alchemy furnace that he had once used, she had once fought desperately with an old man. She spent money as if it was mere water. He hadn't thought that she had come here as well, and furthermore, also had her eye on this brick. Hold on, it couldn't be that she was purposely arguing with him just for the sake of arguing, right? The Cold Spear Association fully supported the Ling Han of 10,000 years ago, and was naturally filled with hostility towards this Ling Han that had reappeared, thinking that because he, too, was called Ling Han and was an alchemist as well, it was a kind of blasphemy to the Ling Han from 10,000 years ago. Therefore, it was not impossible that because she recognized his voice, she was now deliberately competing against him just to spite him. The status of a heaven-grade alchemist could cover for almost everything, but it was not capable of accomplishing literally everything. For example, the Cold Spear Association, which revered the Ling Han from 10,000 years ago to death, was naturally filled with boundless disdain towards the current him. Most importantly, the Cold Spear Association seemed to be extremely wealthy. 3,000. Ling Han increased his bid. 5,000. Mu Fei Yao followed his lead without any hesitation. Fuck, hadn't he thrashed her behind enough at the time? Why was she now standing against him now? 10,000. Ling Han increased his bid as well. 20,000. Mu Fei Yao increased her bid even more happily. In a mere few moments, the bidding price of this bid had been raised to 100,000. One had to remember that the starting bid for this thing was a mere 10 origin crystals. Indeed, even if it was a piece of S******, as long as there were two people who had their eye on it, it could still get the price of gold. Ling Han did not cower. Single-star and double-star origin crystals were not of much use to him by now, and he had originally meant to spend such grade of origin crystals like money. Meanwhile, triple-star origin crystals were to be reserved for the purpose of cultivation. Thus, as long as the price remained inside this range, he did not mind spending money like it was dirt. As a heaven-grade alchemist, he really did not place much importance on money. The bidding continued, and only when the bidding price reached 1,000,000 origin crystals did Mu Fei Yao finally stop with a smirk. This woman had definitely done this deliberately. Though Ling Han did not care about money, to have someone raise the price so that he was forced to pay 1,000,000 origin crystals, he was still honestly very displeased. In the future, if this woman actually found out who he really was, the expression she would have on her face would definitely be very hilarious. Or so he thought spitefully in his heart. At that time, he would definitely make good use of the opportunity, and make her kneel down obediently and call him ancestor. Soon, the personnel of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion delivered the brick over. With whom Ling Han was, he could actually place this on his tab, but since he had the money for it, he did not want to take advantage of it and simply paid directly. He examined this brick closely. This thing was definitely made out of stone, but it really was very solid. Ling Han was not only unable to break it, even using the demon birth sword to slash it was useless. It did not leave behind a single mark. Who knew what effect would be produced if he handed it over to Hu Niu to chew? A thought flashed in Ling Han's head. He threw the brick into the black tower and thought, "Small tower, what kind of material is this? Do you think I am an encyclopedia?" Small tower instantly said in a tsundra manner. "I have lost all my previous memories, so how could I know what this rock that does not even have a bit of source power is? Still so tsundra even after lost your memories." Ling Han mocked internally. Pang, pang, pang. The rock spirit, meanwhile, raced over in a rush, its attention completely focused on that brick. Its mouth had split open, and if it was capable of salivating, at this moment, its saliva would definitely have formed a river. "Master, eat. Eat." It transmitted a thought to Ling Han. "Fine, I'll give it to you. Still, this thing is really hard, so don't chip your teeth on it," Ling Han said carelessly. Though he had paid 1,000,000 origin crystals for it, he was never stingy in matters which concerned his own people, though it was very difficult to refer to the rock spirit as people. The rock spirit was very happy, and quickly pounced over to begin chewing on it. With a crack, it bit down. It actually bit so hard that its whole head was shattered by the force. This was because it had used too much force, while the brick was really too hard. The result was that the brick did not shatter, instead, its head shattered. Thankfully, the rock spirit was capable of fragmenting itself in the first place, and split into a great many little stone creatures. Moreover, for a rock spirit, their human-like figure was only a shape that they maintained. Their head and chest were not their vital points at all, and had absolutely no difference with an arm or a leg. As a result, countless rock debris immediately flew back and gathered once more upon its head, regaining its original shape. The rock spirit would still not give up, and began biting again. However, without any change, it was completely unable to chew apart this brick. The result of using too much force was shattering its own head from the impact. Furthermore, after a few more times of the same result, its recovery rate had gradually slowed down. Ling Han was a little worried that it would really kill itself in the process of trying to get stronger, so he hurriedly drew away the brick and said, "You are not capable of digesting this rock at this moment. Wait until you get stronger, then I'll give it back to you." The rock spirit knelt down onto the ground with a paw, its arms continuously pounding on the ground, causing the ground to tremor from the impact. It was as if the rock spirit was wailing in despair, making Ling Han marvel at the sight. He had never thought that this giant rock would actually be so human-like in behavior and would actually show an expression of misery. However, the rock spirit was skilled at digesting strange rocks. Moreover, after fusing with the rock of the divine temple inside the 12 heaven mystery realms, its cultivation was greatly raised. By now, it was already in the 7th layer of the flower blossom tier, yet was not able to even digest a scrap of the brick at all, which showed how high the grade of this brick was. He drew out the brick again and observed the few pen marks on it. Though there was no way to tell what kind of lettering it was, there was a majestic air to it, a kind of weight that had surpassed Ian's. He played with it carelessly as he thought that this would not be a bad thing to bash someone with, as it was hard enough to do quite a lot of damage. The auction was still ongoing. There were a few ancient martial art techniques up for auction which had originated from the ancient historical sites. What surprised Ling Han was that there were 2 ancient relics that belonged to the era of his previous life, now becoming antiques that people would fight over. He could not help but feel emotional. In what seemed like a dream, 10,000 years had passed for him. Upon his awakening, everything had changed, and no matter where he looked in this world, there was no longer anyone that was familiar to him. He had to reach the shattering void tier as soon as possible. Then, he could shatter the empty void and become an immortal so that he could once again compete with the Sword Emperor and the others. There was also the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. She liked him yet did not tell him, and kept their relationship so ambiguous. He was definitely going to give her a good spanking. The auction ended successfully. As there was still one more month until the grand auction held at the end of the year, the items up for auction this time were not really all that valuable, as all the really good stuff would be reserved for the subsequent grand auction. Ling Han knew that the news of his appearance would have spread throughout the whole Million Treasures city. At this moment, there might be heaven-tier cultivators already lying in ambush, wanting to subdue him in secret and force out the information regarding the inheritance of the 12 courts as well as about the depository of the immortal. There was nothing else that could be done. Though he was a heaven-grade alchemist, who asked him to rise up too quickly while he had yet to form his own party? Otherwise, if he had a dozen or more heaven-tier cultivators following by his side, then aside from shattering void-tier cultivators, what party would dare to trifle with him? He exited the private room. When he arrived in a corner, he directly entered into the Black Tower. After putting on his disguise, he reappeared and overtly joined the masses. He strolled out of the auction venue and calmly turned back round and returned to his accommodations. And there was actually not one person that suspected him. Who would have thought that he would hide himself inside the Spirit Treasures Pavilion? This was what it meant to hide in the shadow cast by the lamp. 1. Chapter 552, Fatty Ma's Invitation. Ling Han returned to his accommodations. Hunyao and Helian Sun Shui immediately came up to receive him, each gripping onto one of his arms respectively. "Why did you come back so late? Niao missed you to death," Hunyao said in a cute voice. "Why did you come back so late? Little Shui missed you to death." Helian Sun Shui followed her example. Her intelligence was really worrying. She actually copied an undependable little girl. Zhu Xian merely smiled at one side. She had removed her veil, revealing her captivating beauty. She, unlike Helian Sun Shui and Hunyao, did not fight for his attention, but rather offered him a fragrant cup of tea. "Xian is still the best," Ling Han complimented. "Humph." Hunyao was displeased. Pouting her little mouth, she declared, "Niao knows how to too." She then raced off, presumably to make him some tea. Helian Sun Shui stared blankly, not knowing if she should follow Hunyao or continue to stay and hold on to the corner of Ling Han's sleeve. In mere moments, Hunyao returned with a cup of hot tea. The little girl had never been very dependable. As she ran, copious amounts of tea continued to spill out. Yet she paid it no mind at all. When she stood in front of Ling Han, she placed the cup on the table with a paw, then looked at Ling Han proudly, seemingly expecting Ling Han to praise her as well. Ling Han took a look. Right, at least 2/3 of the cup's contents consisted of tea leaves. He laughed loudly and said, "Hunyao is indeed generous. Anyone else would only place a few tea leaves for their tea, whereas she would throw in tea leaves by the handful." Hunyao instantly broke out in a dazzling smile. It was good enough for her to have Ling Han's praise. She did not care about anything else. At night, both Hunyao and Helian Sun Shui went to bed. This seemed to be a trait of physical cultivators. They placed more importance on their physical bodies than those cultivators that cultivated origin power. Those who cultivated origin power could actually meditate in place of actual sleep. Zhu Xian finally found the chance to have some personal time with Ling Han. She leant back in Ling Han's arms, and felt her heart was very much at peace. She felt very much at ease. After obtaining the alchemical pill from Ling Han, her master had already recovered from her Dao injury. Though there were still some lingering effects, her power had still returned to the spiritual infant tier. In a place like the North region, that would be considered a top elite. Now, she no longer had any worries. She was left with only one thought in her mind, and that was to be with this man for all eternity. The two of them chatted on and off, and gradually saw sparks of passion flicker in each other's eyes. Involuntarily, they eventually embraced one another. Ling Han's hands moved all over, touching the spots that this extreme beauty was proud of. Meanwhile, Zhu Xian'er was extremely shy, and closed her bright eyes. Only light hums could be heard from her nose as if she was encouraging Ling Han's movements. He was just about to place a kiss upon those entrancing red lips, yet involuntarily thought that the heavens were really amazing. They were both extreme beauties, but Zhu Xian'er and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden were completely different types of beauties. One was gentle and cool, whereas the other was noble and spirited. When he recalled the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured down on him, and instantly, whatever desire he felt was extinguished without any traces left. He merely held Zhu Xian'er and gently rubbed her jade-smooth back. The only thing left inside his heart was endless longing. Meanwhile, Zhu Xian'er very obediently leant back in his embrace, and silently listened to the sound of Ling Han's heartbeat. For a few days, Ling Han stayed in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, either cultivating or playing around with the girls. His days were spent very comfortably. But it was still rather boring to stay continuously in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. With the encouragement and urging of Hu Niu and Helian Sun Shui, Ling Han decided to take the three girls and walk around Million Treasures City. They exited the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and walked in the center of this ancient city. It was an ancient city with a long history. One could sense the air of history and age around every corner, and every single brick had its own ancient legend. On this day, they played around a great many places, and at night, they settled at a lakeside inn, enjoying the beautiful sight of the lake at night. The bright moon and the many stars were reflected on the surface of the lake. Starlight and moonlight flickered continuously, and the scene was exceptionally beautiful. Ling Han and his group sat themselves at the banks of the lake, admiring the beautiful scenery whilst having a barbecue. So fragrant, give me a piece. A voice rang out. A round, fat figure appeared and stretched out a hand to grab the meat skewer that was still grilling, without any fear of the heat. Damn fatty, this is Niu's. Hu Niu was enraged. Whoever tried to snatch her food would be considered a great enemy, and she immediately shot out a foot to kick the newcomer away. However, though this man was a damn fatty, he was a very nimble damn fatty. With a twist of his body, he actually dodged Hu Niu's kick, and his left hand seemed to be completely unaffected. In a single move, it had managed to grab onto a meat skewer. Hu Niu was shouting in rage, and rushed forth in a flurry of punches and kicks. The fatty merely dodged and ducked, but did not retaliate and allowed the little girl to attack him as he liked, showing the extreme flexibility of his body. Yet Hu Niu was even more nimble. They had barely exchanged a few blows when he was hit with a solid punch on his lower abdomen. His round stomach instantly concaved inwards, but his fat body actually acted like a buffer. The concave formed only midway when the force behind Hu Niu's punch had completely disappeared. His stomach bounced and instantly regained its original shape, it even rippled a few times like water. Hu Niu was moving to attack again when Ling Han grabbed hold of her. Yet, she was not pacified at all, and continued to bare her teeth at the fatty. Ling Han smiled and asked, "Fatty Ma, here to make your fortune?" This fatty was precisely Ma Duobao. Ma Duobao flopped and sat on the ground. There was not much difference between his figure and Ning Shuiyang's. His legs couldn't be seen in the first place, and now that he had sat down, it was as if a round ball had been laid on the ground. One would really worry if he would actually lose his balance and begin to roll around on the ground. He ate the meat skewer first, then wiped away the traces of oil and said, "My tanned brother, even if people are separated by great distance, there is always a chance that they may meet each other again. Still, every time I see you, you look differently. What's going on here?" He was playing dumb. Ling Han did not explain. It was obvious that Ma Duobao was an able man, no matter how he disguised himself, the former would always be able to recognize him with a single look. He smiled, then said, "Damn fatty, it can't be that you've purposely come to steal my meat, right?" "Who said I've not?" Ma Duobao really did not hold back. Shwa, 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 he had already snatched a few more meat skewers. Hunyo was filled with so much grief she was on the brink of tears. She glared furiously at Ma Duobao, thinking that this fatty was really detestable. Ling Han snickered, drew out some fine wine and poured him a cup. Then, he said, "Come, have some wine." "Hee, Lord Bao's appetite for wine is very good. If you want to make me drunk to loosen my tongue, that is impossible." Ma Duobao had seen through to Ling Han's motives, yet he still lifted the wine cup and gulped it down. Instantly, his brow relaxed and he said loudly, "Good wine. Good wine." This time, he did not beat around the bush and said, "My tanned brother, Lord Bao plans to form a party and invite you to join. How about it?" Ling Han laughed and said, "I have now become the target of many. Aren't you afraid that I would attract trouble for you?" "What trouble? Lord Bao's one hand can cover the whole sky. I'll block all trouble for you," Ma Duobao said carelessly. Ling Han made no comment. He instead asked, "What kind of party do you plan to establish, and what is its purpose?" "To split open the skies." Chapter 553, Splitting Open the Skies. "Pooh," Ling Han instantly spat out his mouthful of wine. If Fatty Ma said he wanted to form some kind of party to conquer the world, then Ling Han would not be the slightest bit surprised. There were countless people in the pages of history with such grand ambitions, so it would not be a surprise that Ma Duobao would join their ranks. However, this Ma Duobao should not have such great power, right? Though Ling Han couldn't see through him, no matter how he thought about it, there was no way that the former's power had reached the shattering void tier. But to split open the skies? The gods were everywhere. These gods would not punish evil, but if one were to upset the balance of the world, it would make the eye of Heavenly Dao appear, and possibly even directly eliminate such a being. Ling Han had said something similar previously, resulting in the appearance of the eye of Heavenly Dao, which was then scared off by Hunyo's shouting. Thus, he did not dare to speak carelessly now. There were some things that one only had to know in one's heart before one had obtained enough power. It was best not to speak carelessly. "Fatty, you really are ambitious," Ling Han said ruefully. "But please allow me to ask, what purpose would that have?" Ma Duobao bared his teeth in a grin and said, "Shattering void tier shatters the empty void, which would allow only one person to become an immortal. My tanned brother, don't you think it would be better if we simply split apart this whole sky and allow everyone to enter the realm of immortals so everyone would be like dragons?" Ling Han was struck dumb. This really was an astonishing ambition, to split apart the skies so that everyone would be able to enter into the realm of immortals. "Is that possible?" he asked. "Without trying, how do you know that it's impossible?" Ma Duobao asked calmly. He had never thought that this damn fatty would actually have such a grand ambition and the domineering desire to benefit the whole world. He actually wanted to bring everyone with him into the realm of immortals. To be honest, Ling Han had never even thought of such a thing. Since the beginning of time, ascending to immortality had always been an individual matter. How could it be possible that relatives and friends of the individual would ascend along with him? But thinking about it again, if it really was possible to split apart the skies and cleave the earth, one could really bring his companions with him to ascend to the realm of immortals. As long as one was strong enough. Ling Han mused silently. It seemed that it was a very difficult feat for immortals to descend to the lower realm. If that wasn't the case, wouldn't legends about immortals appearing in the lower realm spread all over the world? He had obtained the memory crystal of Xuanyuan, and had seen with his own eyes and heard with his own ears those immortals admit that they would be suppressed upon their descent into the lower realm, and then could be expelled from it. It was obvious that crossing into another realm was a very difficult thing. "Fatty, let me offer you a toast." Ling Han raised his wine cup. Regardless of whether he was willing to join or not, merely the fact that Ma Duobao had such an aspiration was worthy of his admiration. Ma Duobao gladly clinked his own cup against his, and they both emptied their cups. My tanned brother. All right. My name is Ling Han. Just call me by name. All right, my tanned brother. Ma Duobao readily accepted his request, yet had completely no intention to change his form of address. Have you ever thought why there was a lapse in history 10,000 years ago? Ling Han could not help but feel secretly shocked. He recalled Zi Shuxian in his previous lifetime. At the time, he had not had the slightest suspicion, but now that he thought about it, a lapse also appeared about 9,000 years ago in the history of his previous life. A great many martial arts inheritances were buried in history, including alchemical knowledge. It was even worse off for array arts as the knowledge had practically all gone extinct. Through calculation, the great catastrophe which led to the destruction of that era he was in actually just so happened to be 1,000 years later, which was precisely 10,000 years. Once every 10,000 years, a great catastrophe would appear in this world. Furthermore, Zi Shuxian had left behind her last words, and said that all that had surpassed these 10,000 years were a gigantic deception. What had she meant? Did it have some kind of relation with the great catastrophe that took place every 10,000 years? He pondered for a moment, then said, could it be that Brother Ma knows? I do indeed know, but the walls have ears, so I still cannot announce it verbally, Ma Duobao said seriously. Walls, where were the walls? And where would the ears be? Ling Han did not understand, and merely continued to look at Ma Duobao. Ma Duobao raised a single finger and pointed straight up at the skies. The eye of Heavenly Dao? Ling Han asked in shock. Ma Duobao shook his head, and raised his finger higher. Ling Han stared blankly for a moment before he instantly came to a realization. The eye of Heavenly Dao was merely the guardian of this realm and was high above them. Then what was even higher than that? The realm of immortals? The realm of immortals was monitoring this realm? In addition, the enemies that Zi Shuxian encountered were her clansmen from the realm of immortals. Those people had mentioned the subject of destruction of the human race, and seemed to be the culprits behind that great disaster 10,000 years ago. What Ling Han did not understand was, wouldn't it be a very simple thing if the realm of immortals wanted to destroy the lower realm? Even if immortals would be suppressed and weakened upon their descent into the lower realm, wouldn't it be fine if a few more came? After all, there were only a few shattering void tier cultivators in this world, but how many immortals were there in the realm of immortals? My tanned brother, 10,000 years is a cycle. After 100 years, or perhaps there may only be a few dozen years left, another calamity will befall the world. If we don't think of something, then the tragedy that happened 10,000 years ago would repeat itself, Ma Duobao said. That can't be, right? Zhu Xian'er had been listening quietly from the side, but she finally gasped out in spite of herself. This topic was really too astonishing. Helian Sun Shui and Hunyou, on the other hand, were completely indifferent. One of them had lost her memories, whereas the other was a child, so they had completely no concept of world destruction. Ling Han asked, does Brother Ma know the source of all this? I can't say. Ma Duobao shook his head, his finger pointing straight up at the skies. Ling Han was astonished, and asked, could it be that announcing it verbally would lead to a great disaster? If the whole world consisted of dumb commoners, they would naturally be easy to rule over, Ma Duobao said with a smile. Thus, smart people would also have to pretend to be foolish. My tanned brother, your talent is shockingly high, and in the future, you will definitely become someone important, but you must remember, there are too many strong elites in this world. Before you have enough power to protect yourself, you must remember to conceal your strength and bide your time. Ling Han nodded, and said, thanks for the advice. Then, my tanned brother, would you be interested to cooperate with me on this righteous undertaking? Ma Duobao asked. My current power is still too low. Let's see after I reach the heaven tier, Ling Han said in refusal. It was naturally not possible that just because Ma Duobao had sketched out a grand plan and outlined a grand ambition, Ling Han would simply join his banner without any care. Ma Duobao made no more attempts at persuasion. He merely clapped Ling Han's shoulder and said, "My tanned brother, I trust that you will definitely make the right choice. That's right, it hasn't been too peaceful recently, so you had better stay inside the city. Also, take this spirit talisman. Use it at the most dangerous moment as it will be able to save your life." He threw a spirit talisman at Ling Han. Then, without waiting for Ling Han to ask him further questions, he left swiftly. Ling Han and Zhu Xian, meanwhile, were still savoring his last words. What did he mean? Damn fatty, Nyo's meat. Yet Hu Nyo released a pitiful cry. Ma Duobao had left, but he had actually stolen all the meat skewers that had been on the barbecue grill. How could she not feel heartache at that? Ling Han comforted her, and drew out some more meat to barbecue. He and Zhu Xian exchanged a look. Both of them felt much worry. Ma Duobao's words had revealed a shocking piece of information, and it seemed that the catastrophe that had almost destroyed the world 10,000 years ago could possibly happen again. Also, that fatty said not to leave the city, as it is not very peaceful outside. What does that mean? Ling Han rubbed his chin, and felt that that damn fatty was really independable. He had merely revealed half the information in all that he said, and wanted Ling Han to guess the rest. Zhu Xian was also baffled. Only Hu Nyo and Helian Sun Shua were completely carefree, continuing to barbecue the meat at one side elatedly as they eyed the food greedily. Chapter 554, Trapped. Reverie _ A night passed as Ling Han and the three girls returned to Spirit Treasure's pavilion. Although Xuanyuan Guang said he would kill Ling Han if the latter came out, Xuanyuan Guang wasn't that unoccupied to keep an eye on Ling Han for an entire day, otherwise, a great battle would be inevitable. When it was afternoon, Yin Hong ran over hastily. "What happened for you to be in such a desperate rush?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Pa, this old lady is still a virtuous lady, how could you use desperate to describe me?" Yin Hong said, displeased. "A virtuous lady that has the words 'this old lady' on the tip of her tongue, you're truly the first I've seen," Ling Han said, smiling. "Now you've seen it for yourself," Yin Hong said unabashedly. "Oh, right. There's a great matter I need you to know." "What matter?" Ling Han asked thoughtlessly. "In the recent days, there hasn't been anyone entering the city," Yin Hong said. "This counts as a great matter?" "How does it not? You know that what kind of a place Milion Treasure's city is and how many people come and go every day. Millions. However, now there are only people going out, and no one is coming in. The entire city's much more desolate. Go to the Great Pavilion and see how many few customers there are," Yin Hong said in one breath. Ling Han thought all of a sudden that Ma Duobao said the previous day it wasn't peaceful outside recently and that it was best to stay inside Milion Treasure's city due to that. Could it be that this damned fatso knew the reason and that's why he intentionally warned him? "Do you know the reason?" Yin Hong shook her head, and said, "Send out a few groups of people to investigate the situation, but they also left without returning." She paused, and then said, "Perhaps Milion Treasures has been targeted by some force, which set up blockades on the major roads so that people can only leave and not enter." Ling Han knocked on the table, and said, "What force would do such a thing, and what merits does it have for them?" Spirit Treasure's pavilion did business, while the Alchemist Society refined pills. The two united could make medicinal pills circulate throughout the entire world. For martial artists, this was a beneficial thing, so who would destroy it? Even if the Heaven Sword Sect, the Cloud Phoenix Sect, and the other ancient sects had their own alchemists, they didn't need to do such a thing, right? "That's why we have to get to the bottom of it," Yin Hong said. Ling Han glared at her, and said, "You're thinking of using me? Don't you want to know who did it?" Yin Hong said with a snicker. "When the sky falls down, there'll be an able person there to hold it. I'm merely in the flower blossom tier, it's none of my business," Ling Han said, not at all concerned. Yin Hong no longer laughed, but said, "This situation is truly somewhat unusual. The transmission stone already lost contact with the outside, and now people can only leave and not enter. It's as if Million Treasures City has become an abandoned city, not knowing what's happening outside. Aren't there heaven-tier elites? Just let them go have a look, Ling Han said. Someone conjectured that this could be a great conspiracy. Even if heaven-tier elites appeared, they might be targeted. Million Treasures City's defensive formation is first-rate, as long as it has the support of a sufficient amount of origin crystals. Even a shattering void tier can't break in, Yin Hong said. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, so, heaven tier cultivators are scared of dying, making flower blossom tier juniors give up their lives? That's not so. Although flower blossom tier warriors are weak, the elites instead do not care, and it might not be as dangerous. Yin Hong revealed a worried look. Mainly, Million Treasures City has become blind and deaf, and doesn't know at all what it'll face next. It has to get help from the outside. Ling Han sighed. Why was it unpeaceful everywhere he went? Does this count as being dragged down by you? He said, smiling. Once aboard this old lady's pirate ship, just accept your fate, coordinating with him, Yin Hong laughed maniacally. However, this truly wasn't good news. After a few days, the situation became less and less reassuring because as people raised their heads, the entire sky couldn't be seen. What replaced it was a black-colored mist that covered the sky. Now, everyone felt uneasy. The city instantly was full of fear and anxiety. Ling Han took out the spirit talisman Ma Duo Ba gave him. He couldn't help but think that this damned fatso already knew that this would happen, telling him not to leave the city in the near future. Apparently, this wasn't the end, and something even more dangerous would happen. This spirit talisman could save his life. Ling Han laughed. Ma Duobao obviously didn't know he possessed the Black Tower, which was his greatest life-saving trump card. However, this spirit talisman shouldn't be wasted, because the things Ma Duoba had were definitely remarkable. This should be an instant teleportation talisman, he speculated. He was, after all, a heaven-tier elite in the previous life, and could guess it from the vein-like patterns on the spirit talisman. Instant teleportation talisman. Although I've tricked many people into thinking that I possess instant teleportation talismans and not the Black Tower, I never wouldn't thought I would actually receive one. This thing, even I didn't know how to create in the previous life. It said that one must be a shattering void tier elite, having clear knowledge of the secrets of the void, to refine it. Ma Duobao really has many treasures. Did this guy obtain an ancient treasure trove? His possessions are truly surprising. His strength is unfathomable, and who knows where he's run off to now. Ling Han decided to leave the city to have a look, as sitting still to await death wasn't his style. He had the Black Tower and could avert disaster in a hopeless situation. Moreover, he was also very curious. This was Million Treasures City, with heaven-tier elites keeping watch, yet someone dared to conspire against it. Just how powerful was this force? He had the three girls enter the Black Tower. If an incident happened in Million Treasures City once he'd left and they were exposed, it would be too late for regrets. However, the problem was that only Zhu Xian would listen obediently. Unfortunately, to Ling Han's worry, Helian Sun Shui couldn't be stored into the Black Tower. Hunyo wasn't willing to enter the Black Tower either, nagging him to let her stay with him. It couldn't be helped, they'd go together. Hunyo could enter the Black Tower at a dangerous time anyway. Helian Sun Shui was a heaven-tier elite and might be able to trigger her instincts at a moment of life and death, recovering her terrifying strength. The city's formation was already activated to fend against unknown dangers. However, going out was a piece of cake. Everyone hoped for someone to go out to see the situation, and worried about there being no volunteers. The three successfully left the city. Black mist filled the air, impeding their sight. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, but it was useless. The mist was so thick that even it couldn't see through it. It wasn't that the Eye of Truth wasn't powerful enough, but that Ling Han's tier was a bit too low, influencing its effects. Be careful, Ling Han said, letting Zhu Xian out. Storing people into the Black Tower was the matter of a thought anyway. The four walked forwards, and soon the black mist revolved and surrounded them. Their visibility instantly decreased yet again. They were barely able to see things a meter away. Ling Han was slightly better, seeing twice as far. What formation is this? Zhu Xian asked. Amongst the three girls, she was slightly more reliable. Helian Sun Shue's intelligence was worrying, and Hunyou was just a child. Ling Han's expression was grave as he said, "If my guess isn't wrong, this is the fourth killing formation." Chapter 555, Battling Xuanyuan Z Guang. Reverie _ The fourth killing formation? Zhu Xian asked in astonishment. According to the legends, there are spirits in heaven and earth that form 10 natural killing formations, Ling explained. The 10 killing formations are all extremely terrifying. The second killing formation to the 10th killing formation can even wipe out shattering void tears. Then what about the first killing formation? Zhu Xian couldn't help but ask. The first killing formation. Ling Han paused. It's also known as God-killing formation. Could it really kill gods? Zhu Xian cried out. That's right. Ling Han nodded. The first killing formation can erase even gods, the world's greatest killing formation. However, knowledge of formations was lost, so who could set up such a killing formation now? The fourth killing formation could even wipe out high-level shattering void tier elites, yet someone could actually set it up at this day and age. Not to mention whether such a grand formation master existed, the materials used to set up the formation alone were something extremely extravagant. Then aren't we in extreme danger? Zhu Xian said. Ling Han nodded, and said, no idea which force actually trapped Million Treasures City with the fourth killing formation. Are they trying to turn the entire city into a land of the dead? But, Million Treasures City is Middle State's financial center. Its value consists in Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society. If everyone dies, how would it benefit them? If it were to take over a favorable location, that would be understandable, but Million Treasures City wasn't some holy land for cultivation and had no worldly treasures. Was it really necessary to unleash the fourth killing formation? Truly strange. Ling Han shook his head, and said, we can't possibly break through this formation, and even if a shattering void tier elite came, they'd have to be at least in the 9th layer to qualify to break past it, otherwise, even if a dozen came, they'd still fail. Zhu Xian obviously agreed. How many shattering void tier cultivators were there in the vast lands? No one knew, but at most several dozen. Even if all of them came, they might not even be able to resolve this formation. They retreated slowly for fear that the formation would react, killing them on spot. Fortunately, the fourth killing formation, which could kill shattering void tier elites, didn't seem to care much about nobodies like them. The formation was stagnant and had no reaction. On the other hand, it was also because they didn't go deep. The killing formation was a killing formation, after all, and wouldn't miss a small fish because its net was big. They retreated out of the formation, and Million Treasures City appeared before them. In reality, this was the entire killing formation's core, but since Spirit Treasure Pavilion also activated a formation to resist, this became a relatively safe area. Han Lin. With a sneer, an imposing and domineering figure appeared before them. Xuanyuan Z Guang. He stared at Ling Han, and his killing intent circulated. This wasn't in front of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and was even outside of Million Treasures City. No one could stop him from murder here. Ling Han waved his hand, and said, you guys go into the city first. I'll take on this guy. Be careful. Zhu Xian was kind and caring. Beat him up. While Hunyou waved her small fists. Beat him. Helian Xuanyuan was now leaning towards Hunyou because she obviously wouldn't trust Zhu Xian after Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan's brainwashing, leaving her only mimicking Hunyou. 2 grown-ups and a child returned to the city, while Ling Han and Xuanyuan Z Guang faced off. Ling Han didn't dare to take things lightly. Battling at the same tier, he had the confidence not to lose to anyone. However, Xuanyuan Z Guang was not only much higher in tier, he also had superb battle prowess. In reality, Ling Han was in a disadvantageous position. Xuanyuan Guang cut the superfluous words and attacked with a palm from afar. Hong, a sea of fire spread out, spiraling fiercely towards Ling Han. Ling Han carried out Demon Fairy Step, charging towards his opponent. There was too great of a difference in tier between him and his opponent, and it would be too stupid of him to fire against each other at a distance. In battle, one obviously should play to one's forte. To greet an opponent with one's weakness would be too unwise. Dream on. Xuanyuan Guang snorted. He also carried out a movement art and pulled apart the distance between them while unleashing powerful attacks, taking the absolute initiative. His martial arts talent truly wasn't below that of Ling Han, and even surpassed it in certain aspects. At least 22 flashes of Qi were currently number one amongst the younger generation, and under the amplification of heaven and earth spirit Qi, it was as if there were 23 of him attacking Ling Han together, truly shocking. Ling Han responded with ease. He also had many trump cards, such as the Demon Birth Sword, the Thunder Battle Armor, and the Iron Sheet Body, and which of those couldn't turn the tables? He also laughed coldly, and said, "Since you don't dare to fight in close quarters combat, then have a taste of this." His figure retreated continuously, and instantly pulled 10 meters away from Xuanyuan Guang. Earlier, he kept trying to close the distance between them, thus this sudden retreat was out of Xuanyuan Guang's expectations, making him stop momentarily and not counterattack immediately in fear that it might be a trap. Xuanyuan Guang moved forward, while Ling Han also leapt backwards. My cultivation is higher than yours and my origin power is denser, pulling apart the gap. You're even less of an opponent, Xuanyuan Guang said loftily, firing out a palm attack as 23 fire lions appeared and pounced at Ling Han. It was only 10 meters, it was impossible for origin power to be exhausted at such a small distance. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "You think too highly of yourself." He gestured as if drawing a bow, and instantly, a speck of light surfaced, turning into the shape of an arrow. With a xiu, it shot towards Xuanyuan Guang. Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. Fast as a ray of light. Xuanyuan Guang was shocked, hurriedly summoning origin power in defense. The arrow shot at his chest, but the origin power shield appeared in time, blocking the arrow. Even so, it still made him groan. It was so painful that he almost hacked a mouthful of blood. In terms of power, he was obviously above Ling Han, but Ling Han focused power on one point, while he had to guard his entire body. This was obviously incomparable. It couldn't be helped, the arrow was too fast, and he didn't know what part of him it would aim at, forcing him to guard all over. Ling Han retreated with ease, escaping from the 23 fire tigers, and said, "You're nothing more than this." Xuanyuan Guang made a very sullen face. No matter tier or battle prowess, he should firmly suppress Ling Han, yet he suffered a small loss, damaging his self-esteem. A godlike man like him. He was always the only one who, at a lower tier, won against other geniuses. How could he be beaten by someone at a lower tier? He was furious. A flame arose above his head and turned into a dragon, phoenix, and other ancient miraculous beasts, showing his extremely unique bloodline. "You are dead for sure," he announced coldly. Ling Han laughed and said, "You are really good at talking big." Who didn't know how to speak in declarative? Hong. At this moment, the black mist surged. Swords and axes covered in frightening vein-like patterns could be seen indistinctly within, radiating a shockingly cold glare. Ling Han's expression changed drastically, and he immediately ran towards the city. Xuanyuan Guang was furious. Seeing that he was about to unleash his power, this brat actually abandoned the battle? He was just about to curse, but then he also saw the changes in the black mist, instantly feeling a chill inside. He also exerted power on both feet, running towards the city gate. The fourth killing formation had been activated. Chapter 556, The Fourth Killing Formation. Reverie _ The killing formation was activated, and an extraordinary image arose, forming a terrifying, great danger. After Ling Han returned to the city, he smiled at Xuanyuan Guang, and said, "What, why are you following me? Come, let's fight for 300 rounds." He assumed a fighting stance, ready to give it all. Xuanyuan Guang was almost angered to death. "You freaking guarded the city gate, only to say, fight for 300 rounds. Could there be such a cheap person? Not to mention 300 rounds, if he was only stopped shortly, he would be killed by the killing formation right away. I'll come collect this debt from you in the future," he said in a grave voice, turning into an arrow and charging at the city gate. Ling Han originally wanted to mess with him, but feeling several formidable and terrifying mental spirits, he gave up on the idea. True elites had come, and definitely wouldn't sit idly as he killed Xuanyuan Guang craftily. How unfortunate, he'd still wanted to make the other party suffer. Guang, Million Treasures City's great formation was also completely activated, and a white flash of light covered the city's skies like an eggshell. In reality, unseen beneath the ground was another half of an eggshell, guarding this ancient city from all directions with 0 blind spots. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion really wasn't short on the money at all. While this defensive formation was first-rate, it was also terrifying when it burned origin crystals. Hong, black swords 100 m long formed within the killing formation, emitting a shockingly cold glare. Even though several heaven-tier elites were already at the top of the city, they all felt a chill within facing against the black swords. It couldn't be blocked. Those black swords were like completely activated spirit tools, and heaven-tier elites would definitely be killed instantly if they stepped near them. The black sword slashed past. Fortunately, the city's great formation had been activated, turning into a shield that blocked the black sword. Hong, vein-like patterns intertwined and shone, turning into countless fragments that scattered down from the sky. Thankfully, it was blocked. Everyone was greatly shocked. Which force insisted on targeting Million Treasures City? No matter whether it was Spirit Treasures Pavilion or Alchemist Society, they were harmonious in bringing wealth, and were of status above the norm, never making enemies of any force, so why would they attract someone using such a killing formation? Could this be the 4th killing formation? An old fogey cried out. The 4th killing formation? Most people were at a loss. Killing formations are formed naturally by the world. There is a total of 10 kinds of them. Though ranked one after another, their powers are actually not much different, and according to legends, they could even kill shattering void tier elites. As for the 1st killing formation, it's the world's first unbreakable formation, claimed to be able to kill gods, the old fogey explained. What? Hearing those words, everyone's expressions changed drastically. What could be done? The 4th killing formation surrounded the city. Could Million Treasures City's defensive formation rival it? Moreover, even shattering void tier warriors could be killed. Once the city's defense broke, they would all die inevitably. Who was it to be so deranged? Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and observed continuously, comparing as he said, the 4th killing formation isn't complete, and one shattering void tier elite can probably break it. Boy, what do you know? Who the hell are you? The adults are talking, kids screw off to the side. Once he spoke, it instantly aroused many people's dissatisfaction. These people were all self-assured in their experience, even flaunting their identities in a situation like this. However, there were also people who kept an open mind and revealed a hint of cheerfulness. It was rumored that Spirit Treasures Pavilion had a shattering void tier big shot keeping watch, and if he took the field, wouldn't he be able to break through the formation? With this little friend's words, this old man suddenly feels the same. It suddenly occurred to the old fogey earlier. Otherwise, this city's great formation couldn't possibly block the 4th killing formation. This was a naturally formed killing formation, something extremely terrifying. Only the other 8 killing formations could rival it. As for the 1st killing formation, it could kill gods, so even the other 9 killing formations added together were inferior to it. If only Ling Han said so, obviously no one would believe it, the words of the lowly carried little weight. However, Being confirmed by the old fogey, more people instantly believed those words, which also greatly increased their confidence. Please request the senior of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion to intervene and break through this killing formation. That's right, only that supreme being can do it. Everyone said one after another. Although they had no right at all to request a shattering void tier elite to act, it greatly concerned their lives, so they could only muster up the courage to say so, otherwise, there would only be the road that led to death ahead of them. A figure flashed by. It was shockingly the damned fatso, Xuanyuan. He looked outside the city as another black-colored spear formed, launching a second attack. He frowned, and said, "Several pavilion masters have left Million Treasures City to visit other places." The Grand Pavilion Master also left, everyone cried out. He left. Xuanyuan sighed. Now. This pavilion only has me, the only pavilion master keeping watch. Everyone was depressed. Heaven tier elites couldn't break through the fourth killing formation even if it was an incomplete one. Pray that the great formation guarding the city is strong enough, guarding till those seniors return. Everyone could only hope so. Ling, however, was curious. Those pavilion masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion actually all left the city, moreover at the same time? Being able to move 8 pavilion masters together, could it be that an extraordinary historic site had been discovered? Xuanyuan shook his head, and said, "The 8 pavilion masters won't possibly return in near time. Probably, 1 to 2 years would still be difficult." What, that long? Everyone's faces turned pale. 1 to 2 years? Could this great defensive formation be maintained for 1 to 2 years? Million Treasures City is an important land of Middle State. With communications cut off for a long time, people will definitely realize that something is wrong and run over to see exactly what's going on, someone said, filled with hope. However, can we really endure till that time? Someone said pessimistically. Hong. 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 The fourth killing formation kept bombarding Million Treasures City. The great city guarding formation formed a shield to protect it, but it wouldn't stand such crazy bombardment for long. Soon, cracks appeared on this shield, which shattered with a bang in the end. The great city guarding formation formed a second shield, and continued to withstand the fourth killing formation's bombardment. In the short term, the defensive power could completely keep up with the destructive power, reaching a balance. The city's protection wouldn't be broken through. The problem was that the great city guarding formation was activated by origin crystals, and under such high expenditure, how long could it be maintained? After Xuanyuan and a big shot of the Alchemist Society discussed shortly, they arrived at a conclusion: it could endure for half a year, and if the other forces took out their origin crystals as support, then it would last even longer. At such a time, no one dared to be selfish. Everyone contributed their origin crystals one after another, hoping that the great formation could persist until reinforcements arrived. "Where are the experts of the Alchemist Society?" someone asked. Right, although alchemists primarily refined pills, the Alchemist Society's headquarters were here, so they hired a few elites to keep watch. Perhaps there might be a shattering void tier super elite there. The 2 heaven-grade alchemists left the city long ago with their heaven tier followers, an alchemist said. His status was considerably high as he was a high-level Earth-grade alchemist. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society left at the same time, but Million Treasures City suffered the surrounding attacks of the fourth killing formation. This wasn't a coincidence no matter how one looked at it. Chapter 557, Dilemma. Reverie _ Could the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society have joined hands to conspire to murder us? Someone with persecutory delusion cried out. Xuanyuan sneered, and said, "To kill a dreg like you, would they need to take such a roundabout way? This lord can crush you 10,000 times." This certainly stood to reason, making many agitated people calm down. The key was that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society had no reason to do so. The 8 pavilion masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the 2 heaven-grade alchemists of the Alchemist Society, as well as the heaven-tier elites, did they go to a certain historic site? Ling Han suddenly asked. Xuanyuan looked at Ling Han again, revealing an astounded look. Although this youngster interrupted twice and seemed to have no manners, every word he said nailed the spot. He nodded, and said, "That's right." The pavilion received news that Alchemy Emperor Ling Han's ancient tomb was discovered, and within it were treasures collected by the Alchemy Emperor in all his life. Everyone was in an uproar. The Ling Han 10,000 years ago was a legend, not only excelling in alchemy, but also at the pinnacle of martial arts. How much and how shocking would his wealth be? Thinking about it made people's eyes red with desire. Now that his ancient tomb was discovered, could you say that you would hold back and not intervene? Ling Han's expression, however, was strange. A ghost, in his previous life, his flesh was shocked into ash by the Black Tower during an expedition. There couldn't be an ancient tomb where he was buried. This was clearly a trap to draw out the elites of Million Treasures City and take advantage of it to surround the city. Concocting such a great conspiracy just to kill them, the useless troops. Even though there were still Xuanyuan and other Heaven-tier elites here, setting up the fourth killing formation just to kill a few Heaven-tier warriors, this was obviously not worth it. No, there had to be a greater scheme, just that he hadn't thought of it. By the looks of it now, this is a scheme of luring the tiger out of the mountains. Hopefully, the pavilion masters and the two grandmasters can return safely. Xuanyuan sighed. He obviously knew that things were too coincidental and there definitely was a bait. The enemy hidden in the dark deliberately planned such a large scheme, so presumably, reinforcements wouldn't come in the near time. We can only rely on ourselves now. Xuanyuan cupped his fists and said, "Please, old brothers and sisters. Be generous and help Small Yang guard Million Treasures City. Million Treasures City is our home too, we ought to do everything in our power." A voice floated over from within the city, extremely old but also filled with power and influence, making many people's thighs shiver as they were unable to stand firmly on their feet. "Small Yang, when it's necessary to intervene, we won't stand by idly." This was an old lady's voice, which was surprisingly like tough iron. After hearing her words, many people cried out with ears leaking blood, unable to withstand such oppressive might. "Yes." A third voice sounded, but it was a simple answer. These were the few Heaven-tier forces in the city. Of course, this was also because of Million Treasures City's singularity, or else no city in the middle state would have Heaven-tier warriors keeping watch. Xuanyuan couldn't help but feel relieved. There were pathetically little shattering void-tier elites in the world, and Heaven-tier ones were rare enough. Now, there were 4 Heaven-tiers joining hands, obviously making him much more confident. Moreover, the mysterious enemy used the fourth killing formation to entrap them. Didn't this explain that the opponent didn't have power equal to shattering void tier? Otherwise, even the 4 in the Heaven tier wouldn't block it, no? Thinking so, his had slightly even more confidence. Ling Han took it all in his eyes, but shook his head. The hidden force definitely had shattering void tier elites, or else why would they act so extremely daringly? Moreover, without the power of shattering void tier warriors, how could they have set up the fourth killing formation? The opponent's shattering void tier powerhouse was probably pinning down the Grand Pavilion Master of Spirit Treasures Pavilion, making him unable to get back in time. Anyway, Million Treasures City currently was certainly in imminent danger. Long, the fourth killing formation kept operating as black swords, black sabers, black spears, and all other sorts of weapons appeared, bombarding the Great City Guarding Formation. The Great City Guarding Formation only formed a shield in opposition, simple yet effective. The day passed with people overwhelmed in anxiety. When everyone raised their heads to look at the sky on the next day, they were all shocked. Yesterday, the fourth killing formation only prompted weapons to bombard the Great City Guarding Formation one at a time, but today, there were 2 weapons. This created 2 times the destructive power, and obviously caused the expenditure of twice as many origin crystals. The only thing that set people's minds to rest was that the Great City Guarding Formation could still last. Originally, the condensed shield could withstand 10 hits before shattering, but now it shattered with 5 hits. As long as it didn't shatter with one hit, then there was no need to worry about the city gates being broken through and the killing formation's menace's direct arrival. Everyone's expression was grave. Yesterday was one attack, and today was two, so would it become 3 tomorrow, and the day after 4? Increasing continuously at this rate, the great city guarding formation's defensive limit would be reached. As expected of the fourth killing formation, Ling Han also looked cautious. If he didn't have the Black Tower, he would just tear apart the instant teleportation talisman and run since he couldn't save others anyway. However, he now had the ability to save everyone in the city, and if he chose to only protect himself, an insurmountable threshold would be left in his heart. Saving people was as easy as lifting a hand for him, but this would expose the secret that he possessed the Black Tower. At that time, how many people would target him? Wait, my true self has already been targeted by countless people anyway, so what if I expose that I possess a spatial spirit tool that can accommodate living things? Ling Han thought the other way around. A spatial spirit tool that could accommodate living things and the Black Tower, these were two different matters. As for the people stored in the Black Tower, he would make them lose their senses, not letting them know where they went during this time. Alright, if it comes to the moment of disaster, I'll appear with my original face, storing everyone into the Black Tower, then leave with the instant teleportation talisman. Ling Han made up his mind. With his thoughts clear, his mood instantly turned cheerful. On the third day, the thing everyone worried about happened. The fourth killing formation formed 3 weapons at a time, firing at Million Treasures City. Now, the shield formed by the great city guarding formation exploded in only 3 hits. The atmosphere within the city was stifling, and public order began to go out of control. At night, several vicious incidents happened. There were robberies, murders, and rape on women. Under the Armageddon-like inhibition, the beastly nature in many people's hearts was unleashed. If they were to die, why not do whatever they pleased before dying? The city became more and more chaotic as more people joined in for such wild pleasures. At first, it was only normal people, and afterwards, some lowly martial artists also joined the line of criminals, making the calamity even scarier. At this rate, the fourth killing formation didn't need to break through the city. Million Treasures City would bring about its own destruction. The city's powerful forces joined hands to enforce the law, killing many evildoers. The chaotic situation finally returned under control. Fortunately, on the 5th day, the fourth killing formation didn't form 5 weapons, stopping at 4 at a time. Everyone felt slightly at ease. Chapter 558, The Thousand Corpse Sect Assaults. Reverie _ Even though there were only 4 weapons attacking simultaneously, this was still very terrifying. The shield formed by the great city guarding formation could only block 2 attacks before shattering. The consumption of origin crystals became an astronomical figure. Even if the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society were very wealthy, they could only endure a month of such expenditure. 1 month later, what would they do? The 10th day came. Someone's here. At the east side of the city. The news spread, and everyone came to the east side of the city like a swarm of bees. They ascended onto the city walls and saw 10 young males and females standing out to east the city. Behind them was a crooked old man, whose eyebrows were all white. Who are you people? Why trap us in here? What exactly do you guys plan on doing? Everyone shouted one after another. The 11 people didn't seem to have come here mistakenly no matter how it looked. Xuanyuan also came to the city's edge, and as he looked at the old man at the bottom, his expression turned stern. He couldn't see through him. This person was definitely in the heaven tier, and his cultivation wasn't below his. The 11 people in the distance were indifferent, they had no intention of replying, appearing quite arrogant. May I ask how we might have committed an offense, making you guys open such a killing formation to trap us? Xuanyuan asked. This was a heaven tier elite. The old man finally said, in Million Treasures City, there's something that my sect must obtain, but we don't know where it is. Finding it will inevitably alert people, so might as well besiege this place and kill everyone. Then, there wouldn't be anyone in the way. It was actually for such a reason. Because they feared others might get in their way, they had set up a killing formation to completely slaughter a city. Could they be more deranged and perverse? After everyone heard, they instantly hurled all kinds of abuse. However, some people thought that to make such a force unsparing in unleashing the fourth killing formation to besiege an important place like Million Treasures City, the thing they sought had to be quite precious, no? For this force to do so, it was equivalent to making all the vast lands its enemy. It wasn't like the 8 pavilion masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the 2 heaven-grade alchemists of the Alchemist Society would never return. Would they let the matter go after they found out? Only in terms of size, the combination of Spirit Treasures Pavilion and Alchemist Society was probably the most powerful existence in the vast lands, right? To gravely offend such forces just like that, it was enough to prove just how precious that thing was. Oh, what is it? Why don't you guys let us find it, and remove the fourth killing formation in return? Xuanyuan said, smiling. Although he was a great expert, the blood of a merchant flowed within him, so it was naturally a habit to bargain. Hee, no need to bother. We still hope to acquire it by ourselves. Moreover, our sect likes this place quite a lot, and plan on turning this place into our sect's main base, the white-browed old man said. Oh, may I ask what this lord is called, and what your dear sect is called? Xuanyuan asked. The white-browed old man revealed a frightening smile, and said, this old man is surnamed by one, with a one-character name, Yuan too. As for our sect, you guys should have heard of it to some extent. Oh, then why not say it and let everyone admire a little? Xuanyuan shot back. No need to say, see for yourselves. Biyao laughed grimly, and waved his right hand. Hong, long, long, a strange voice sounded as 7 caskets suddenly slid out from the black mist as if they had legs, sliding all the way to his legs before stopping. The 1,000 Corpse Sect. Instantly, many people cried out at once. Gagaga 3, this sect will use Million Treasures City to tell the entire world that the 1,000 Corpse Sect is back again. Biyao laughed loudly. Hearing his arrogant laughter, the people at the top of the city walls said nothing, feeling only an extremely oppressive atmosphere. The 1,000 Corpse Sect came back so brazenly, and was going to destroy Million Treasures City, while they were the ones who were going to be used for ceremonial sacrifice. Ling shook his head inwardly. If the 1,000 Corpse Sect chose Million Treasures City as the location for their gates of revival, then the fourth killing formation would never be withdrawn. It would be 1,000 Corpse Sect's Great Mountain Guarding Formation. The 10 killing formations all had one thing in common. The killing formations formed by heaven and earth didn't need origin crystals to maintain the formation but needed to be set up. The power of heaven and earth would naturally pour in, forming a terrifying murderous calamity. Used as a sect guarding formation, it would truly be the world's finest. Don't say that I didn't give you guys a chance to live. Biyao laughed eerily. These 10 people are the sect master's 10 direct disciples. Now, they're here to choose followers, and those picked by the 10 masters can live on. The 10 young males and females were all lofty. What was surprising was that they clearly didn't have any fluctuations of corpse chi on their bodies, unlike Biyao, whose figure was crooked and bound by corpse chi. A youngster in a green gown said, amongst those in the same age level, whoever can block 10 of my moves will qualify to be my follower. Ha, 7th junior brother actually said to have them block 10 moves. Could you have slacked off recently, falling behind in progression? A youngster in purple clothing said, smiling. Whoever can block 5 of my moves can become my follower. He obviously thought himself stronger in that there weren't many who could block 5 of his moves. These youngsters were certainly strong. All of them were in the flower blossom tier, a few were even in the high stage of the flower blossom tier, no weaker than Xuanyuan Guang. Rats scampering across the street dare to be so arrogant. Let me test you guys out. Jia Zhang already jumped down the city gates, and said loftily, I'm not here to be your follower. Just that you guys are unpleasant to the eye, so I'm finding one to slaughter. Who wants to die? All right. On top of the city, many people instantly cheered. The Thousand Corpse sect trapped them with a killing formation, not only conspiring to take their lives, but also humiliating them. This obviously made many people's blood boil with indignation, simply wanting a grand battle. However, some people had other ideas because the current circumstances clearly favored the Thousand Corpse sect. A fine bird chose a good tree to nestle in. Just a second layer of the flower blossom tier, who'll go? The 10 disciples of the Thousand Corpse sect looked at each other, and finally looked at the youngster that had just turned 20. 17th junior brother, your tier is the lowest, so this one will be up to you. That youngster seemed somewhat shy, and walked out among everyone's jostles, facing against Jia Zhang. Die. Jia Zhang immediately attacked, reaching out with his right hand and turning it into a golden dragon claw that pressed towards the youngster. Hong, the dragon claw grew with the wind and turned into a terrifying 3-meter-long being. Vein-like patterns shone and drew in heaven and earth's spiritual chi. The claw enlarged once again, reaching 900 meters. Hong, the dragon claw pressed down as if a real dragon was truly drawn out to suppress the world. You have some strength. That youngster nodded, and reached out to counterattack. As he reached out, the Thousand Corpse sect's special characteristic was immediately displayed as a black-colored evil chi swirled and turned into a frightening skeleton, opening its mouth to bite at the dragon claw. Hong. Chapter 559, Corpse Soldiers Show Off Their Power. Reverie _ The two battled fiercely. From the circumstances, it was very hard to tell who was better right away. On top of the city walls, everyone was excited. The Thousand Corpse sect boasted greatly, but in the end, they were nothing more than this. Although Jia Zhang was one of the 5 dragons, he definitely couldn't enter top 100 amongst the younger generation in the middle state. Only Xuanyuan Zi Guang, Yao Huiyu, and so on could represent the limits of the prodigies of the younger generation. Nevertheless, the Thousand Corpse sect was a great ancient sect, yet the disciples they fostered were nothing more than this. It seemed that it had been too long, so their sect had waned. If it weren't for the 4th killing formation, they definitely wouldn't stand a single blow. Ling Han, however, shook his head, and said, Jia Zhang has lost. His voice wasn't low. It was heard by many people on the side, and they couldn't help but be furious. Hey, which side are you on? Why would you hope for Jia Zhang's defeat? Could he be the Thousand Corpse sect spy? I think he's suspicious. These people all stared at Ling Han, their gazes unfriendly. Zhu Xian was smart, immediately understanding what Ling Han meant. She said, he's the Thousand Corpse sect's disciple, and Thousand Corpse sect's true battle prowess lies in corpse soldiers. Hearing Zhu Xian's explanation, everyone instantly came to the same realization. Right. Why was the Thousand Corpse sect notorious and spurned by the people of the world, and even destroyed several millennia ago? It was precisely because they refined corpse soldiers. Where did corpse soldiers come from? They came from the martial artists they killed, and the elite warriors' corpses stolen from cemeteries. Without corpse soldiers, the Thousand Corpse sect would be a second-tier sect, but with them, it could be compared to powerful forces like the Heaven Sword sect and the Cloud Phoenix sect, and even go further beyond. Now, that youngster rivaled Jia Zhang with his personal battle prowess, so when he unleashed his corpse soldiers, what would the outcome of the battle be? Ling Han said Jia Zhang already lost, and definitely didn't say it without thinking. He wasn't on the Thousand Corpse sect side, but simply told the truth based on the facts. However, Jia Zhang, who was the one involved, didn't realize it all. He still battled with the youngster fiercely, and as the two were well matched in strength, he was also fully enjoying himself. Being oppressed in the city for 10 days made him extremely out of sorts, and he just happened to need a great battle to vent some anger. 17th junior brother, why aren't you done yet? Too slow. That's right, what month and year will this fight go on until? The 9 youngsters of the Thousand Corpse sect all began to shout. That youngster revealed a fierce and savage smile, and said, "Since the senior brothers and sisters are impatient, this little brother will end this battle as soon as possible." He let out a battle cry, and as ear-piercing sounds came from afar, 4 caskets slid over. The 1,000 corpse sects people fostered corpses, and the stronger they were, the more corpse soldiers they could foster. He was in the flower blossom tier, and could at most foster 6 corpse soldiers, but this demanded too much. 4 was already his limit. Meanwhile, normal flower blossom tier disciples could only foster 2. One needed to separate a part of the divine sense to control the corpse soldiers, and the more divine sense was separated, the more it affected the body. Therefore, unless one had extraordinary talent, it was better to pursue the quality of corpse soldiers, and only then the quantity. "Go!" that youngster shouted lightly, and 4 corpse soldiers immediately leapt out their caskets. Each one was rotten with only the skeleton left, but their bones were refined into the color of shiny silver, as if it were made out of metal. 3rd tier silver-armored corpse, equivalent to the flower blossom tier. That youngster stared at Zhang and said, "You're too weak. You're not qualified to be a follower of Si Tu Yao." Bullsh. Zhang was furious. Although he didn't want to be his opponent's follower at all, he couldn't bear the opponent's disdain. He let out a battle cry, and a mirror appeared in his hand. "Heptagold mirror," he shouted loudly and moved the mirror. Instantly, a flash of golden light surged out, shining towards Si Tu Yao. Si Tu Yao faced it indifferently, not even bothering to parry or evade. A corpse soldier stepped forward to block the flash of golden light. With a Z, a hole instantly opened up on the corpse soldier's ribs, with gas flowing out. Impressive. The corpse soldier's physique couldn't be compared to same-tier rare metals, but it was still quite formidable. However, it was penetrated with one attack, serving to show how terrifying this spirit tool was. Si Tu Yao didn't care at all. He pointed at Zhang and said, "Kill him." Instantly, the 4 corpse soldiers were like fierce wolves and tigers, pouncing towards Zhang. The 1,000 corpse sect was dreaded and hated by many large forces in the ancient times, which certainly stood to reason. It was not only because their actions were vile, but also because they were powerful. With regards to just personal battle prowess, Si Tu Yao and Zhang were equal, but once corpse soldiers were out, their battle prowess wasn't on the same level at all anymore. The 4 corpse soldiers were in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, refined hundreds of times. Their physique was tough, and they did not fear death nor pain. They were literally human-shaped weapons, and which flower blossom tier cultivator wouldn't get scared seeing them? Zhang already unleashed that heptagold mirror, and his battle prowess skyrocketed a whole lot, but against the 4 corpse soldiers, he was really backed up, completely unable to cope. Weak, truly too weak. The 10 disciples of 1,000 corpse sect all shook their heads, appearing as if he were beneath contempt. On the top of the city wall, everyone was silent. Zhang wasn't really weak. He was at the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, but his personal battle prowess reached 7 stars, and after unleashing the heptagold mirror, his battle prowess skyrocketed to 10 stars. It couldn't be helped that his opponents were too strong and too many. 4 corpse soldiers were all at the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier in terms of battle prowess, neither fearing death nor pain, with tough defense. Nothing could be done. He was very soon in imminent danger, and would definitely be killed within 10 moves. Enough. Xuanyuan said in a deep voice. Biyao laughed gently, and said, "Juniors are sparring, and the older generation shouldn't meddle." This lord said, "Stop." Xuanyuan roared, and his voice turned into waves that rolled towards the opposing side. This was a heaven-tier warrior's furious roar. If hit by the sound waves, it was guaranteed that those at the flower blossom tier would instantly faint. "Damned fatso, you're too pushy." Biyao attacked, and a deathly mist was waved out, blocking Xuanyuan's sound waves. "Ah!" Zhang let out a tragic scream. His arms and legs were grabbed separately by 4 corpse soldiers, and with a pull, he was torn into pieces. He had no iron sheet body, and having his limbs grabbed and pulled, he obviously died. 17th junior brother, why'd you dismember him? Wouldn't it be better to leave a complete body to refine a corpse soldier? Someone said with a laugh. Yao laughed and said, a small fry at the second layer of the flower blossom tier refined into a corpse soldier would have limited strength. Moreover, he can still be refined into a corpse soldier even after being dismembered, just that a bit more effort is necessary. Who wants to battle? He looked at the people on the city wall, wearing an expression of disdain. How truly arrogant. However, Jia Zhang's strength was already quite good, yet he was swiftly defeated at the hands of this person. This guy certainly had the ability to be proud. At least, those who had the same battle prowess as Jia Zhang were not qualified to take up the challenge, or else, they'd just be giving up their lives. Chapter 560, West Region's Pang Xiang Ming. Reverie _ Hee, I heard that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion held a once-in-3 or 5-year competition, and one of the competition rounds was martial arts. Are there really no other decent opponents? Yao continued to ridicule the crowd. Everyone was unconvinced. Although Yao won, it still didn't change their fate of being trapped, and since they were trapped and humiliated, they felt even worse. I'll battle you. A hot-headed young man leapt down, yet he was just a nobody that didn't even enter the flower blossom tier. Without even getting close, he was bitten to death by a corpse soldier, his blood splattering all over the ground. Yao played with the heptagold mirror that used to belong to Jia Zhang, and smiled as he said, although that guy was pathetically weak, this spirit tool is really quite good, posing a threat to even peak stage flower blossom tier warriors. Give back the treasure mirror. Someone leapt down the city walls and yelled at Yao. It was a 40-years-old man, who emitted an unfathomably deep presence. Already at such an age. Don't butt in. Yuan intervened, and swatted towards that person with a palm. Xiang hurriedly intervened to save that person. Peng, with a loud bang, Yuan's attack was neutralized. That middle-aged man's face turned pale, and he hurriedly ran back. He was Jia family's spiritual infant tier elite. He originally wanted to retrieve the treasure, yet almost gave up his life doing so. Yuan laughed. This old man will give you guys a chance. Those under 30 years of age can take the field to spar with these 10 small guys. Each person can participate in at most 10 fights, and with each win, this old man can let 10 people leave the city. Xuanyuan immediately sneered, and said, can your nonsense be trusted? Then this old man will make an oath, Yuan said, and raised his hand to make an oath as expected. Gods lay 3 feet above one's head. Dao oaths couldn't be recklessly made. Everyone instantly revealed an impulsive look. Winning one battle, they could receive 10 quotas to leave the city, and if they won a few battles, they could even bring their entire family out of this killing formation. I'll battle you. Someone immediately jumped out and attacked Yao. Court death. Yao sneered as 4 corpse soldiers demonstrated their power, instantly dismembering that person. Give us a decent opponent, or else there's no need to make such a bet, a disciple of the 1,000 Corpse Sect said, revealing an impatient look. I'm not interested in killing ants. Atop the city gates, the youngsters looked at each other, revealing their burning fury. Quite arrogant, huh? A youngster in a blue long garment said dully. His figure was lanky, and he had a moon-shaped mark on his forehead, flashing indistinctly. He stood amongst the crowd, unprepossessing, but once he spoke, his presence rose infinitely, instantly turning into a resplendent star from a passerby. He leapt down and stood at the city gates. This opponent's not bad. With a glance, Yao revealed a joyful look. This follower's mine. The youngster in the blue raised his right hand. A silver bell was actually fastened to his wrist, looking somewhat girly. He shook his hand, and instantly ding, ding, ding sounds echoed, beautiful and pleasant to listen to. He looked at Yao and said, I'm about to win, and I don't need any quotas to leave the city. You can kneel on the ground and kowtow forcefully 3 times. Si-Tu Yao's expression changed drastically, and he said, such arrogant manner. Humph, after I defeat you, I'll have you know what the pecking order is. The youngster in blue smiled slightly, and said, attack, I'll give you 3 moves. Arrogant. Si-Tu Yao snapped his finger. Charge. The 4 corpse soldiers immediately jumped out and attacked the youngster in blue garment. The youngster was extremely at ease, and as he pressed his right hand forward, the 4 corpse soldiers actually stopped all at once as if a freezing spell had been cast on them. What? Everyone cried out. What was going on? Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and instantly saw everything clearly. The 4 corpse soldiers actually had threads attached to them. It was precisely these threads that tied them tightly, rendering them unable to do anything. Ling Han thought it was blood-sucking origin gold at first, but examining closely, he discovered that it was actually formed by origin power. Origin power formed threads that could tie down people. What sort of mystic arts was this? The youngster in blue clothing pulled with hands again, and the 4 corpse soldiers were instantly like marionettes, moving involuntarily. However, their movements were rigid, and that look was truly amusing. However, no one was able to laugh, feeling frightened on the inside. Those were 4 corpse soldiers, which were comparable to warriors at the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, yet under the control of the young man, they were like marionettes. This was too ridiculous. Who is this guy? He seems really strong. Hiss, he's the one West Region's Spirit Treasures Pavilion asked to attend the martial arts contest. He seems to be called Pang Xiangming. Right, he's called Pang Xiangming. So powerful. Everyone cried out. Not many people could see that Pang Xiangming used threads of origin power to constrain the 4 corpse soldiers, but it was precisely because they didn't know that they felt it incredible, taking him for a celestial. Ling Han also nodded. This skill was certainly effective, but Pang Xiangming didn't appear that relaxed either. After all, he was tying down 4 9th layer flower blossom tier corpse soldiers, while his cultivation was merely at the 5th layer of the flower blossom tier. This was also because he was freakish enough to fight a stronger opponent while being weaker, and even fight 1 against 4. However, this was also roughly his limit. Conversely, the 1,000 corpse sect was truly freakish. A random disciple could rival the most outstanding geniuses of present age. Si-Tu Yao was also shocked at first, but his divine sense could be said to be connected with the 4 corpse soldiers, and he soon felt that the opponent's constraints were inadequate. Thus, he immediately laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, thought you were going to be quite formidable. Peng, 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 as expected, the 4 corpse soldiers shook off the constraints, attacking Pang Xiangming once again. Pang Xiangming was fearless. As his hands danced, he appeared extremely effeminate, looking as if a girl reincarnated in the wrong body. As he raised his hands, he formed orchid-like shapes with his fingers, appearing extremely gentle. The 4 corpse soldiers couldn't approach at all as they got close. He would constrain them with his origin power and throw them out. Si-Tu Yao let out a battle cry and joined the fray. Corpses flood heaven and earth, he bellowed as corrosive black-colored corpse chi spewed out from his entire body. You think it'll work on me? Pang Xiangming sneered, and spread out an origin power shield to block out the corpse chi. He was at the 5th layer of the flower blossom tier, so his origin power was naturally much thicker than Si-Tu Yao's. The corpse chi couldn't possibly penetrate it. Si-Tu Yao laughed loudly, and said, "This wasn't prepared for you." As the sound of his words fell, a blood-red ray shone from the eye sockets of the 4 corpse soldiers, emitting an even more violent presence. Peng, 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 they suddenly broke the constraint of Pang Xiangming's origin power threads, charging towards him. Pang Xiangming frowned slightly. After absorbing corpse chi, the 4 corpse soldiers' strength increased explosively at least by 1 star of battle prowess. It made him feel a modicum of pressure. Chapter 561, Fighting for You. Reverie _ The 4 corpse soldiers charged up together at Pang Xiangming. Each attack emitted an intense evil presence, just as if they were demons that climbed out of hell. From a certain sense, it certainly was so. Corpse soldiers and corpse chi were of the same origin. After the 4 corpse soldiers absorbed C2 Yao's personal corpse chi, their strength instantly grew explosively. C2 Yao, on the other hand, appeared somewhat dispirited, seeming to have expended a great deal. Just a few skeletons to deal with me? Pang Xiangming sneered. The moon-shaped mark let out a great ray of light, while his hands danced, confining the 4 corpse soldiers once again. Break, he shouted loudly, and with a snap, the hands and legs of 2 corpse soldiers were pulled off. Such formidable power. After corpse soldiers were refined, their bodies were extremely tough, approaching the level of same-tier rare metals. As for how close it could get, it would depend on the refinement heat and ingredients added. The elite corpses were only slightly higher in grade. As for the original ingredients being refined into a powerful corpse soldier, they naturally had a great price. C2 Yao's 4 corpse soldiers weren't extraordinary amongst the flower blossom tier beings, but being refined into 3rd tier silver armored corpse was already quite remarkable. Yet, Pang Xiangming instantly smashed 2 corpse soldiers, proof enough of Pang Xiangming's remarkableness. Damn it! C2 Yao roared, and the 4 corpse soldiers assaulted again. The corpse soldiers had no sense of pain anyway, so losing a hand and a leg only slightly affected their battle prowess. He also personally entered the battle, attacking Pang Xiangming with them. Pang Xiangming should be able to win, right? Zhu Xian asked Ling Han. Ling Han nodded, and said, if C2 Yao doesn't have any other trump cards, then Pang Xiangming's victory is assured. He made judgments on several occasions that already convinced and assured many people. Although almost no one knew Pang Xiangming, everyone was in the same boat, hoping that Pang Xiangming could emerge victorious. Some people simply wanted to regain some pride, while some thought that after Pang Xiangming won, there would be some spots to leave the city, maybe they could get one from him. Originally, everyone was like a block of iron, willing to fight to the death for their survival, but once a feeble chance of survival appeared before them, quite a few people had a change of hearts. Pang Xiangming was better by a notch as expected, and after a few dozen moves, the 4 corpse soldiers were broken down. He also attacked C2 Yao with a heavy palm, but it didn't kill him. As a black-colored corpse chi swirled, C2 Yao retreated into the crowd and hacked out a mouthful of black blood, looking extremely feeble. Huh, 17th junior brother, looks like you have no chance with this follower. A youngster in a black gown laughed loudly, taking large strides forward. He then said, I'm Bian Hao, the 14th disciple under the Sect master. Pang Xiangming looked coldly at the youngster in black gown, and said, move away, he still owes me 3 forceful kowtows. Youngster, do you really not want the 10 quotas to leave the city? Bai Yuan interrupted. I don't. Pang Xiangming declined without hesitation. You stupid. Atop the city, several people instantly cried out. You don't want it? Then give it to me. Motherfuck, where did this fool come from, actually willing to die here just to earn some respect? How extremely retarded. Ling Han, however, clapped and revealed a smile. This Pang Xiangming had quite a personality, he was worthy of saving. He looked coldly from the sidelines. Some people he planned to save, while some were only fit to turn into mire here. Hee, since you're willing to give up 10 quotas, then that's your choice, Bai Yuan said with a smile. However, him kowtowing because you won is your own one-sided wish. He never agreed. How deceitful. But thinking it over, certainly, the bet of 3 kowtows was Pang Xiangming's unilateral statement. C2 Yao didn't agree, so a one-sided wish didn't work, right? Otherwise, with so many beauties in the world, if you liked one, couldn't you just bring one home? Pang Xiangming revealed a furious look, but didn't express his anger. He pointed coldly at Bian Hao and said, then I'll kill you. Kill me? You're not qualified. Bian Hao laughed loudly. He had the cultivation of the fourth layer of the flower blossom tier, a layer higher than C2 Yao, but the 1,000 corpse sect still relied on corpse soldiers. How many corpse soldiers he possessed and how strong the corpse soldiers were was the key. Ji won, with a grazing sound, for caskets slid over. Peng, 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 for corpse soldiers jumped out. They were obviously third-tier silver-armored corpses. Unless they possessed 3 lives corpse casket, they couldn't control corpse soldiers with power beyond their own tier. This also showed the scariness of the 3 lives corpse casket. Pang Xiangming obviously wouldn't be afraid, charging towards Bian Hao. The 4 corpse soldiers intercepted him, waving their large skeletal hands and raising a terrifying strong wind. Apparently, these 4 corpse soldiers were stronger. I'm afraid they've reached 13 stars battle prowess. Ling Han nodded. So powerful. Zhu Xian cried out in surprise. After martial artists died, only the corpse remained. Even if it underwent refinement, being able to unleash battle prowess that corresponded to its own tier was quite remarkable, and to surpass star levels, the corpse was either really extraordinary when it was alive, or a great price was paid to refine it. No matter how it looked, Bian Hao's 4 corpse soldiers were truly strong and gradually suppressed Pang Xiangming, giving him no time to attack Bian Hao. Peng! A trace of blood oozed from Pang Xiangming's waist. Bian Hao wielded a dagger, fresh blood still dripping from it. He licked it with his tongue, revealing a bloodthirsty savageness. His sneak attack succeeded just now, striking Pang Xiangming. However, under such circumstances, it didn't really count as a sneak attack. The people of the 1,000 corpse sect were one with corpses, and it could only be said that the 4 corpse soldiers gave Pang Xiangming too much pressure, creating a chance for Bian Hao's attack to hit. Ha 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 ha. Bian Hao laughed loudly. You've already affected by my corpse poison, and you can only be saved by submitting to me. Otherwise, the corpse chi will slowly erode you, turning you into a bloodthirsty corpse soldier. Humph. Pang Xiangming ignored him, and flew directly to the top of the city wall, slumping down. He took out a pill bottle from a spatial ring and poured out a few soybean-sized medicinal pills to take, beginning to execute an art to expel the corpse chi. Ignorance. Bian Hao sneered as he looked toward the city gates, and said, "Who's still not convinced and wants to battle with me?" He was nothing more than the 14th disciple of 1,000 corpse sect master. How could he be so arrogant? Everyone placed their gaze on Xuanyuan Guang. This youngster had outstanding domineering might, having the momentum to surpass Yao Huiyu and other prodigies who had already made a name for themselves. Moreover, his cultivation of the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier was at the top of the younger generations. If he took the field, victory was definitely assured. Xuanyuan Guang revealed a proud look. He originally didn't want to take the field so soon. A genius like him should obviously intervene at the last moment, shining on the entire field. However, Million Treasures City had no other stronger youngsters, and if he didn't step up now, the enemy's challenge would soon be over. He smiled faintly at Hellion Sun Shui, and said, "This battle. I'll fight it for you." Chapter 562, The Good Quality of Others. Reverie _ Damn, he doesn't even forget to pick up girls when taking the field. The eyes of the young ladies nearby lit up in excitement as they cupped their hands and placed them in front of their chest, desperately yelling out Xuanyuan Guang's name, wishing they could throw themselves at him. Idiot. Ling Han shook his head. Idiot. Hellion Sun Shui imitated him while sticking her tongue out. After all, she had to add in some individual characteristic. Next time you meet this idiot, just beat him up. Ling Han encouraged. But I'm scared of hurting my hand. Hellion Sun Shui said weakly. Ling Han pondered, then took out the brick, shoving it into her hand, and said, "Then use this to smack him." Hellion Sun Shui was instantly elated, and said, "All right." She gripped the brick and tried out her strength in waving it, looking eager to give it a try. Xuanyuan Guang scored a rebuff, and his expression turned gloomy. No matter whether it was martial arts or relationships, he was successful in every endeavor, but now, he not only was unable to completely suppress Ling Han in martial arts, he also was unable to conquer Hellion Sun Shui, making him out of sorts. We'll see when I sweep clean these 1,000-corpse sect dregs and win over endless glory. Xuanyuan Guang leapt down. Looking loftily at Bian Hao, he said, if you can block one move, I'll spare your life. How arrogant. Bian Hao possessed 4 corpse soldiers that reached 13 stars in battle prowess. Was this not enough to block Xuanyuan Guang's one move? Bian Hao obviously burst into anger. He was a personal disciple of the 1,000-corpse sect master, proud and arrogant. However, someone actually looked down upon him, so how could be tolerated? He was just about to attack, but felt his shoulder sink. Someone held him back. It was Bai Yuan. Venerable Bai, please let me battle, he said. Bai Yuan shook his head, and said, you're not his opponent, let the third go. What? The disciples of the 1,000-corpse sect all cried out. Although they weren't all here today, the third, in other words, the third disciple of 1,000-corpse sect master, Zhu Tiangu, was the strongest in their party. The strongest card was already going to be dealt now? Was the opponent that strong? Zhu Tiangu had been napping all this time. Now, he finally opened his eyes and stared at Xuanyuan Guang for a short while, revealing a bellicose expression, and said, this person is a good opponent. I don't have the certainty to win. Bian Hao and the other disciples were shocked again. Even third senior brother said so. Was Xuanyuan Guang really that strong? Second senior brother should be able to win firmly, not to mention great senior brother, whose talents are peerless, such that all of us together aren't as good as him. Zhu Tiangu said with a smile. Bian Hao and the other disciples all nodded, firmly believing Zhu Tiangu's words. Every one of them were geniuses, but they still idolized their great senior brother, who knew just how strong this person was. Zhu Tiangu walked out in large strides. His stature was very tall, but he was very sturdy. At first glance, he looked somewhat like a youngster that cut firewood in the mountains. Your corpse soldiers? Xuanyuan Guang asked. When I need to use them, they'll appear, Zhu Tiangu said indifferently. Xuanyuan Guang sneered, and said, not using corpse soldiers, you'll be instantly killed. If so, then I can only blame my inferior skills. Zhu Tiangu laughed loudly. When experts fight, they battled with their wits first before using their hands. Apparently, Xuanyuan Guang also didn't dare to underestimate Zhu Tiangu, or else he wouldn't need to provoke him with words, and simply just attack. Xuanyuan Guang placed one hand behind his back, and said, since you're not using corpse soldiers, I'll let you face me without one of my hands. This, arrogance. Zhu Tiangu revealed a hint of anger. The opponent wanted to force him to use corpse soldiers with just one hand? How confident could he be? He snorted, opened his mouth, and reached in with one hand, pulling out a black-colored longsword. What the hell? Everyone atop the city was shocked. You were really that poor that you didn't even have a spatial ring, hiding a sword inside your body? Ling Han, however, revealed an astounded look, and muttered, the legendary nurturing a tool with one's own body is real? What's nurturing a tool with one's own body? Zhu Xian asked. She, like Ling Han, was also disguised, so she obviously didn't call herself Xian and Ling Han as Brother Han or Master Han. Nourishing a spirit tool within the body means to use one's own blood and qi to nourish the spirit tool constantly. This allows the spirit tool to become more powerful, and even manifest a tool spirit, Ling Han said, but immediately shook his head and added, no matter what spirit tool, the moment it's shaped, it exists for battle. As a vicious object, nourished within the body, it is extremely likely to kill oneself. Nourishing a tool with one's own body was a risk, but if one could stick it out, then the tool thus nourished would be extremely powerful. Atop the city wall, everyone listened to Ling Han's explanation, nodding repeatedly. some people were also secretly guessing Ling Han's identity. He clearly looked 24 to 25 years old yet knew so much secret knowledge. His background was probably extremely remarkable. Xuanyuan Guang, however, revealed a curious look, and said, nourishing a tool with one's own body? Hee, that's a first, let me try it out. Zhu Tiangu held his sword in hand, and his listless expression was instantly swept clean, emitting a feverish battle intent as he shouted loudly, as you wish. He pushed off fiercely and shot towards Xuanyuan Guang. As the black sword was brandished, 17 flashes of sword chi formed, tangling toward Xuanyuan Guang like whips. Interesting, Xuanyuan Guang muttered, still with one hand behind his back. He flicked gently with his other hand, and a fire tiger appeared, biting at the sword chi. What a joke, you want to neutralize my black demon sword? Zhu Gutian sneered. Can I not? Xuanyuan Guang said arrogantly. That fire lion swelled up abruptly and became 10 large, emitting a terrifying baleful presence. Condensing chi into ray. Bai Yuan gaze tightened. This youngster is truly remarkable, almost forming a ray, yet he intentionally suppressed it, obviously wanting to cultivate more flashes of chi. How truly bold and daring. Rays crushed chi in quality. At the time, when Rain Emperor cultivated Fist Ray, with the cultivation of the first layer of the Flower Blossom tier, he fought a 9th layer Flower Blossom tier warrior and a King tier demonic ape. It was clear how powerful rays were. This could increase the battle prowess of martial artist at the core, but Xuanyuan Guang suppressed the condensing of ray forcibly. On one hand, it showed his great martial arts talent, and on the other, his great ambition of not settling for 22 flashes of chi. In certain aspects, geniuses were all the same, existing for the sake of breaking the limits. This fire lion wasn't a flash of kit, was condensed from 22 flashes of chi. However, it was different from the integratedness of a ray, but was more like a combination. Ling Han nodded, the good quality of others could help develop oneself. Xuanyuan Guang's thought process was very good, simulating chi into a ray. This way, he could continue to cultivate chi while increasing its power. Truly remarkable pioneering. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.